In a blink of an eye, the pain caused by the war still exists, but Konoha gradually regained his vitality. Although there is no guy who dared to do graffiti on Hokage's forehead, the street and alleys eating ramen, selling three-color meatballs, and bare children fighting each other, mixed into a lively scene. Of course, there is also the big selling, Konoha Daily, that adds a bit of anger. Especially after the serialization of the Sword Art Online novel, the setting of Minds Opened, the unheard-of virtual infiltration games, as well as knights, elves, and second swordsmanship, Konoha villagers seem to have opened the door to new world. The unprecedented novelty stimulates their senses. Today is even more so hot, because the illustration of the protagonist has been updated. Asuna is expected to become the first virtual goddess. After all, the previous life Asuna was a model worker who couldn't find the website. Its charm is self-evident. When Ching Shu saw the long dragon more than 10 meters away from the bookstore, it was like seeing gold ingots with wings falling into his bowl one after another. The desert of cultural entertainment is all gold. After thinking about it, he didn't bother Omazi, who was so busy, and turned to the research institute. According to his breakdown, the current research institute has 7 groups, including the network research group established a few days ago. It is composed of personnel selected by the original scientific research group, all experts in Grandmaster computers. There are ninjas, but most of them are civilians. After his talk, Haruki barely clarified the concept of the network. There are many things that are unclear, but the head of the network research group, Motohashi Ju, is also surprised to close his legs. She can foresee that this way of easily connecting people without chakra will bring unique impacts and reforms. Master Haruki. Motohashi, holding 2 wires, noticed Haruki's arrival. She turned her head, her beautiful face was black and white, like a small tabby cat. What are you? Haruki looked at her in surprise. I was connecting the circuit earlier, and it may have caused a fire due to poor contact. Small problems, I'm used to it. Motohashiju didn't care and wiped his face, and then changed from a flower cat to a deep mine miner. Haruki pointed to her face. What? Motohashiju glanced at his body subconsciously, turned around, and his white coat was flying along with it. Is there any problem? My clothes are not damaged. It doesn't matter if they are broken, there is still one inside. I wear them all except for sleeping. Although Haruki had long been accustomed to her lack of mind, she still had a headache at the moment. No, your face. The sunny tree simply used chakra to form a water mirror. Oh, it's okay. Anyway, it will be dirty after washing. Motohashi glanced at it and waved his hand with an expression of no big deal. Haruki couldn't help but doubt it. Are you really doing network research? Those who didn't know thought it was an electric repairman. Is your lord here to ask about the progress? Motohashi talked about things more seriously. That's it. Haruki is actually boring, thinking of the internet, so he turned here. Of course, he definitely hopes to make progress. But for such a complicated thing as the internet, it is impossible to achieve any results in just 1 week. According to the orders of the adults, we connected all the computers in the research building with communication lines to form a simple local area network, but it is estimated that it will take some time to succeed. As predicted, Motohashi confirmed his conjecture. It's okay. Take your time, you continue to work, I will go to Orochimaru. Haruki didn't urge her either. Motohashi heard Orochimaru's name lit up. Her idol is Orochimaru. When Haruki heard that the Oshima Chamber of Commerce found her in the metropolitan city of Fire Country, she originally refused, but after knowing that she could become a colleague of Orochimaru, Motohashi Marube left home and came here. However, after so long, she hardly saw Orochimaru. It can only be said that before he knew Orochimaru, his appearance and Sanin's record were quite popular with girls. Besides, his own charm is not bad. The ability to establish a Tonin village in the original work and so many people follow it is not just a matter of strength. I really envy you, you can see Orochimaru-sama anytime and anywhere. You can too, Haruki encouraged her. Everyone is a colleague, don't be shy. I tried, but he didn't see me. Motohashi gritted his teeth. Said don't bother him with boring things. Gee. Deserve to be single. Haruki couldn't help shaking his head, but he couldn't say anything. Maybe he really doesn't need it. After all, even children are artificial people. Orochimaru's laboratory. After entering, the painting style becomes gloomy and cold. Haruki looked at the naked person in the transparent cylinder, and couldn't help but feel a little shocked. He looks exactly like Orochimaru. There is no doubt that it is a clone. You succeeded. Haruki rarely showed a look of excitement. If the cloning technology is perfect, another plan of his can be launched. No, unfortunately, Orochimaru's answer poured cold water on him. This body has a virtual appearance and is of no use. It is quite a distance from my perfect container. Haruki didn't feel lost. Compared with before, it is a great improvement. I believe that with Orochimaru's clever mind, it will not take too long to surprise him and reduce his capital expenditure. Do you need my help? How can you help? Orochimaru asked without thinking. Haruki was silent. Really not. Orochimaru snorted coldly, and he wouldn't bother to chat with this half-hearted guy if he hadn't seen him provide funds. What else is there? This is already driving people. The corner of Haruki's mouth twitched. Do you understand? The Gold Master is the uncle. With the help of Hyuga's family, would it be faster? Byakugan. Orochimaru glanced at him unexpectedly, and said in a deep voice, Byakugan's words can save me some time, but are you sure that those guys participating in our experiment will not expose us? Will not. Haruki narrowed his eyes. I have my own way. How many people do you want? Bring me 10. Ro. Haruki responded. Orochimaru was a little surprised. Although he knew that Haruki used Caged Bird to reach an agreement with Hyuga's family, the human experiment seriously violated the village's regulations. How can those guys who have always supported Hokage tolerate it? He doesn't get any ecstasy, right? Haruki naturally didn't know what Orochimaru was thinking. After saying goodbye to him, he came to Hyuga's house. As a wealthy family, Hyuga's mansion always reminds him of the neon big river drama he has seen in his previous life. After the announcement, Haruki was able to see Hyuga and G. Please. Hyuga and C made tea personally and brought them to him. Patriarch Hyuga, don't have to be so polite. Haruki smiled and took the teacup, took a sip. He couldn't tell what was good or bad. It's pretty much the same if I drink Coke. He can tell the difference between Pepsi and Tasty. I don't know what Haruki-sama is going to have today. Hyuga and Sis' attitude is unabated. Haruki didn't force it. He put down his teacup and smiled softly. Patriarch Hyuga, have you ever heard of Tensigan? After Haruki uttered the 3 words Tensigan, he has been observing the reaction of Hyuga and G. The Hyuga family has a long history as a wealthy family as famous as Uchiha. Uchiha has a steel telling secrets. Does the Hyuga family have a similar heritage? But there is no direct explanation in the original work. Hyuga and C were startled for a moment, and then showed a dazed look. This result did not surprise Haruki. For a long time, Tensigan has never appeared in Hyuga's family, and he is a bit stubborn and has no new ninjutsu. The Caged Bird also greatly restricted the development of Hyuga. There is a small number of people in the Zong family, and the possibility of geniuses is very slim. There are many geniuses in Branch House, but by planting Caged Bird, Byakugan has flaws, and his temperament is also affected. Not to mention the emergence of Tensigan, it is difficult to be a top power. What is Tensigan? Hyuga and G couldn't think of the relevant information, so they couldn't help asking. Byakugan's promotion, Haruki said without hesitation. Hyuga and Sis' first reaction was that Haruki was joking. As the patriarch of the Hyuga family, an outsider came to him and told him that Byakugan could be promoted. The outrageous degree is equivalent to that his wife is pregnant, and the first person to tell him the news is the neighbor pharaoh. But then he hesitated. Haruki really impressed him too deeply. Even so strange, he also believed a little bit. Where did you hear about Haruki-sama? Hyuga and G glanced at the smiling Haruki. They didn't seem to be joking. If it is true, he doesn't know how to react. Katsuyu Fairy. Haruki said the wording he had thought of a long time ago. You should know the Katsuyu Fairy? He has seen Sage of Six Paths alive. Hyuga and G couldn't help their eyes widening. Katsuyu Fairy naturally he knew. The 3 holy places of summoning beasts, the ruler of the wet bone forest, are long-lived creatures that have lived for thousands of years. I once went to the wet bone forest with Tsunade, met the fairy Katsuyu, signed the summoning contract, and learned a lot of lost secrets. At this point, Haruki stopped. Hyuga and C subconsciously asked, why didn't you say it? But then it reacted. He himself believed Haruki's statement. Katsuyu Fairy said that he had seen Tensagan's ninja when he was young, and its essence is completely the same as that of Byakugan. Seeing his appearance, Haruki continued, there is no doubt that Byakugan was promoted to Tensigan. What is the name of that ninja? Is it our ancestor? Hyuga and G asked impatiently. I don't know. Haruki couldn't tell him that it was Kagaya. It's a pity. Hyuga and C sighed. He slowed down, sorted out his thoughts, and asked, "Is your lord talking about this just to tell me the 3 words Tensigen?" Haruki took a sip of the tea slowly, and shook his head in his expectant gaze. "Naturally, it doesn't stop. My purpose is to tell you how Byakugan became Tensigen." Hyuga and C were shocked. "What should I do?" "A lot of Byakugan fusion." Haruki said one way to promote Tensigen, which is the most likely to be achieved at present. Hyuga and G fell silent. He lowered his head, tapping the teacup with his fingers unconsciously, quiet and messy. After a long time, he shook his head. "This method doesn't make any sense." "Really?" Haruki looked up at Hyuga and G. His face was disappointed, but he was also determined. "But there is still the possibility of getting together without harming Hyuga's family, such as cloning." "Clone?" Hyuga and Shi are not like Orochimaru. Clone is a very new word to him. "Yes, a container with Byakugan is cloned. As long as the number is large enough, it can be merged into Tensigen. Although I don't know much about cloning, what you were talking about is a bit fanciful. If you can clone the bleeding and continue the boundary, the entire ninja world will be crazy." Hyuga and C were not confused, he said very calmly. "Normal situation is really difficult." Haruki was able to make this request because a similar person appeared in the original Uchiha letter. He is the subject of Orochimaru and was transplanted to Sharingan. Of course this doesn't explain much. The point is that the people cloned by Orochimaru using his cells still have Sharingan. Haruki was not sure if the cloned Sharingan was transplanted or cloned. But he is more inclined to clone. "Then you know, why did you mention cloning?" Seeing him in thought, Hyuga and G couldn't help but ask. He naturally hoped in his heart that what Haruki said was true. Seeing is believing. Orochimaru has already figured out a rudiment. If you are interested, you can find 10 trusted tribesmen to help him. Haruki stated his purpose. Hyuga's family, he can't trust it 100%. But with common interests, the possibility of betrayal is extremely low. As long as Hyuga and G believe him, even if they believe only a little bit, they can't help but try. Byakugan is the foundation of their Hyuga family. Even the complaining caged bird was born for Byakugan. Hyuga and C Shenshin glanced at Haruki, seeming to observe his expression. He picked up the teacup and drank it, just like an adult said. "You won't be disappointed." Haruki smiled. In a sense, he was not deceiving. If Orochimaru's experiment succeeds, Tensigen will naturally have hope. But there are also problems. Cloning requires a lot of money support. Hyuga alone is far from enough. Hyuga and Shi thought of the deal he had made with Tsunade, and they were a little surprised, but can that barren place really make money? The Tsunade delegation will return to the village in 2 days. At that time, I hope you will send 2 members of your family who are good at doing business with me to Tsunade. "Are you going personally?" Hyuga and C looked at him in surprise. "You didn't even know that you were offered a reward of 30 million taels at the money exchange, did you?" "What?" Haruki really doesn't know about this. After all, he is not Kakuzu, and he doesn't need to kill someone for money. "But isn't 30 million the same price as Sarutobi Asuma? I suspect that Tsunade offered the reward, so don't you go into the mouth of a tiger?" "It's okay to get into the mouth of a tiger." Haruki resisted the desire to complain and shook his head. "Don't worry, I will take Minato, he has Flying Thunder God, and the escape is first rate." Hyuga and C naturally know the Flying Thunder God technique originated from second Hokage Senju Tobirama, but does it harm Master Hokage's reputation to use it to escape? Of course he didn't dare to speak directly. "One more thing, I plan to hold a party to involve Konoha's major families. Why don't you have a host from the Hyuga family?" Host. It is a novel vocabulary again. Hyuga and G also paid attention to what Haruki has done recently, novels, newspapers, and all new things. "Yes, what are the requirements?" "Pretty and decent." Hyuga Kaoru. Hiyoshi's girlfriend. Haruki then met Hyuga Hiyoshi's girlfriend, Hyuga Kaoru. Before, he was worried that his butterfly effect might lead to the disappearance of Hyuga Hinata. But seeing Hyuga Shuin's familiar face, he is almost certain that this is Hinata's mother who has no name in the original book. Master Haruki. Hyuga Hiyoshi greeted respectfully, and he accompanied his girlfriend. Compared to some time ago, there was no bitterness and enmity on his face, and Ruyoruawu smile appeared. The eyes are full of brilliance, there is hope for the future, and the whole person is positive. The change arises from the caged bird crisis. After Hyuga Hiyoshi's life broke free, he not only reunited with his younger brother Hyuga Hizashi, but also gained a lot of friends of the same age. Now they are progressing and competing with each other. In the past, it was difficult for the branch house to become friends with the Zong family. The relationship between them is always as if they were separated. All in all, Hyuga Hiyashi is very grateful to Haruki. Haruki could naturally see his state, and couldn't help but feel the influence of the environment on a person. The student dormitory that often appeared in previous lives is also for similar reasons. He joked. With a girlfriend, it's really different. Hyuga Hiyashi scratched his head. To be honest, he often dreamed of the scene where Haruki held the word, "kill him," to him, and then woke up in a cold sweat. But the Haruki in front of him is completely different. Hyuga Shuen lowered her head shyly, her face flushed, like a green apple. And Hinata are printed on the same mold. When Haruki watched anime in his previous life, he liked the introverted and strong Hinata very much. Go straight ahead and do what you say, because this is my forbearance. The ups and downs of the world, it is too rare to be able to carry out oneself. Presumably Patriarch Hyuga mentioned what it was. Haruki took out a handcard from the storage scroll and handed it to Hyuga Kaoru. The host's job is not difficult, mainly controlling the field and reading the program. Your appearance and temperament are quite consistent, only your tone needs to be practiced. Hyuga was born in a wealthy family, with a natural intellectual elegance. Speaking of the host, Ching Shu's first thought was Dong Ching. Listen to my opening remark first, and carefully figure out the tone. Haruki gave a light cough and moisturized her throat. Amidst the dumbfoundedness of the two, a passionate and elegant female voice emerged spontaneously. False voice can be done by changing the vocal cords with chakra. Haruki explained that he didn't think there was anything with his thick skin. Shuen, you try. Okay. Hyuga took a deep breath, calmed down, and imitated Haruki's tone just now. It was good at first, but in the second half of the time, because of tension, there was a vibrato. It's an excellent talent to be able to do this for the first time. Haruki noticed her anxiety and said encouragingly, keep it in the state just now, do it again, just treat us as something that doesn't exist. In his previous life, he knew that to blame for introverted or nervous people would be counterproductive. Hyuga Shuen nodded heavily. This time the effect is almost perfect. Hyuga Hiyashi beside him was also relieved. Although it's just a small matter, they all try to do their best for Haruki's importance. There will be 7 programs in the evening, so you need to say 7 host words at that time. The date has not been fixed for the time being. You have time to practice. After you get familiar, you can try to read it smoothly in front of the crowd. Some people are usually very talkative, but they are extremely nervous on stage or podium. It comes from a natural personality and requires more exercise to improve. Okay. Hyuga Shuen replied obediently. There's one more thing. Haruki seemed to think of something, and said, the host has special clothes. I will send someone over later. Then Shuen will tell her about the size, so as not to fit. The traditional clothes of the Hyuga family are thick and old-fashioned, not suitable for evening parties. Haruki expected the host's dress to be a cheongsam or evening dress. Beautiful and generous, elegant and sexy coexist. The only thing I don't know is whether Hyuga Shuen will accept it. After Haruki left the Hyuga house, he came to Hokage Pavilion. He was only planning to talk about Tensigan with Hyuga and C, and fooled him to provide Orochimaru with manpower. But all came, and he told him about the party plan that had not yet been approved by Sarutobi Hiruzen. The comic show turned into a party, it was a random movement of Haruki. He thought that the comic exhibition is too novel and may not be accepted by Sarutobi Hiruzen, but there will be precedents in the evening, such as celebrations. Although the content varies greatly. Master Haruki, please come in. Thanks. After Haruki finished speaking to Anbu Ninja, he opened the door and entered Sarutobi Hiruzen's office. As always, he was wearing a Hokage robe and biting his pipe, very serious and serious. No one knew what he was holding the crystal ball to watch the moment before. Master Hokage. Haruki, looking for me today, could it be filming again? Sarutobi Hiruzen thought of the Konoha daily. The very ordinary photos last time caused a great sensation. In a sense, this guy was bold and deceived himself. But, that pretty poster and later character illustrations of Sword Art Online won his heart. No, but it's kind of related. Haruki's complexion was a little weird, and she was filming. That's it, Master Hokage. I want to hold a celebration to celebrate the victory with Tsunade under your leadership. Sarutobi Hiruzen subconsciously spit out a circle of smoke. Will the time be too rush? We just won, so we shouldn't spend money on this. The words express the meaning of rejection. The cost of this celebration is covered by the new Konoha bookstore. Haruki smiled slightly. I call it the sponsorship fee. What is the sponsorship fee? Sarutobi Hiruzen asked. Another form of advertising. Holding a celebration will inevitably attract a large number of people, and the new Konoha bookstore will be contracted for expenses, but correspondingly, the new Konoha bookstore must be vigorously promoted at the celebration to expand its popularity. Haruki gave some more examples. After Sarutobi Hiruzen listened, he couldn't help being surprised. He had never heard of this kind of sponsorship fee, but thinking about it carefully, it was unexpectedly reliable. The reason is the same. But thinking about what Haruki had done recently, he admonished. These are trails after all. Haruki, you should focus on medical ninjutsu. Remember Hokage-sama's teachings. After Haruki bowed slightly, his face became particularly dignified. New Konoha bookstore has achieved a certain degree of development with everyone's support. The reason why I have the idea of the celebration is to return everyone's love, and second, I hope that everyone will walk out of the shadow of war. Sarutobi Hiruzen was suddenly moved. His love for the village is no less than that of him. I was the one who blamed you. You will be the one who held this celebration. If someone blocks it, come and report to me. Yes. Haruki's goal was achieved, and Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled at the same time. All of a sudden, the atmosphere in the office was pleasant. Anyone who reads it will say that Mr. Hokage cares for his subordinates. Haruki arrived at the Uchiha house, but before entering the door, he heard an unusual noise. Like a shuriken collision, there was a vaguely violent chakra shaking in the air. Obviously, it is easy to see that someone is fighting. Haruki frowned. He likes watching others fight most. Besides, there are still two Jonin. As one of the few people who can go unimpeded in the Uchiha house, he was able to see the two ninjas who competed. One of them is his student, Uchiha Makoto. The other one was slightly older in terms of face, with black hair, a Chinese character face, and a serious face. Somewhat familiar. Haruki reacted immediately, Uchiha Fugaku. The eyes of the two of them are the Sharingan of 3 Guyu Jade. Shuriken is amazingly fast. Sharingan itself has the ability to predict. In the case of both of them, it can only evolve into a prediction that I predicted your prediction. But Haruki can tell that Uchiha Fugaku has a lot of experience and Sharingan is more proficient in using it. Not surprisingly, he will win. It's normal. Strictly speaking, Uchiha Makoto is his forced stimulation, and the time to open his eyes is too short. Rao is so, her peers have rarely been her opponents. It just so happens that Uchiha Fugaku is currently the first genius. Mangekyo Sharingan can even be opened in the future. Haruki shook his head. It's not his student's problem. Hey, you don't seem to be from Uchiha. Suddenly a voice rang behind him. Haruki turned his head and saw no one. Here. The childish voice was a little angry, and he jumped up vigorously, just to Haruki's waist. This is a little boy who is only 3 or 4 years old. Wearing black sportswear and a sunshade mirror on top of his head. Sure enough. Why did you show up in our Uchiha house? The little boy couldn't help but question when he saw the strange appearance. What's your name? Haruki probably recognized who this little guy was, but was not sure. Uchiha Obito. How about you? Haruki, your future teacher. Huh? Uchiha Obito subconsciously surprised. Don't lie to me, my teacher is not you. You are in school now? I don't think you are even 5 or 6 years old, right? Huh. I'm Uchiha. Uchiha Obito said with his arms akimbo. Isn't it normal to go to school 2 years in advance? Haruki was taken aback for a moment, as if there was nothing wrong with it. In the original book, Kakashi graduated at the age of 5, which means that he may enter school at the age of 2 or 3. And he was at the same time as Obito. Then your teacher will be replaced by me soon. Haruki reached out to touch his head, but he avoided him. Impossible. You haven't heard my name? Do you think you are? Uchiha Obito stopped suddenly, his small eyes showing thoughts, where Haruki seemed to have heard the name. Oh yes, Sister Makoto's teacher. Thinking of it, he turned around and wanted to run. But I want to leave after offending the teacher? It's not that easy. Haruki grabbed his collar as if pinching the back of the neck of fate. Teacher, I'm sorry. Uchiha Obito was picked up and said heartily. Where are you sorry for me? Haruki released him and smiled. Me, Uchiha Obito fumbled, did not say why, but he reacted quickly. Yes, I'm right. Why are you afraid of him? So he felt that he was doing it again, adjusted his clothes, and said, "No." "Oh?" Haruki stretched his voice with interest. "I think the famous Haruki-sama doesn't care about me, right?" Uchiha Obito noticed his look and said quickly. "Naturally not." Ching-Shu shook his head. Uchiha Obito breathed a sigh of relief. Because he is often late, he has a natural awe of the teacher. Ended. Haruki looked at the situation inside the court, and Makoto was already closing the seal of reconciliation. As he expected, he really lost. Makoto looked a little silent. For Haruki's understanding of her, most of them were reluctant to lose. But Uchiha Fugaku has a complicated face. The man who was about to become his fiancé stepped into the battlefield because of Haruki's importance, but no one expected that Sangoyu would open his eyes and directly reach Jonin's strength, almost as good as him. Now that Mangekyo Sharingan does not yet exist, Sangoyu has access to Uchiha's core affairs. Uchiha is always proud and respects strength. Even if he is the son of the patriarch, if his strength is too weak, it is absolutely impossible to inherit the position of patriarch. This is in sharp contrast with the Hyuga family. "Teacher?" Uchiha Makoto came back to his senses, noticed Haruki on the sidelines, and hurriedly walked up to him. And Uchiha Fugaku suddenly held back what he wanted to say. He looked at the prestigious medical ninja Haruki. His brows were slightly furrowed, but he didn't mean anything malicious. At the foot of Haruki, Uchiha Obito couldn't help but spit out his tongue. He didn't expect that it was Haruki. Fortunately, he didn't offend him. "Teacher, I lost." Uchiha Makoto was a little lost. "You have done a good job." Haruki smiled. "No one can reach the sky in one step. If there is such an opportunity, it is mostly a trap." Uchiha Makoto nodded. She naturally understood the truth. But thinking about the things in that day's illusion, she always feels urgent. "Master Haruki." Uchiha Fugaku also stepped forward. "Makoto, thanks to your help. Otherwise, we Uchiha will miss another genius." "Not a help. Makoto is my student. That being said, not every teacher can be like you." Uchiha Fugaku looked serious. "I don't know what Haruki-sama is doing here. If I can help, I will definitely help. This is just right for you to help. I want a few children to participate in the celebration." "Celebration?" Uchiha Fugaku immediately remembered the Kagura dance held at the shrine. "Yes. Including this guy." Haruki pointed to Uchiha Obito, who wanted to slip. In his somewhat desperate expression, Uchiha Fugaku nodded. "Don't care about it. Liar, all liar. One more thing, I hope to go to the Ninamao station. I'll take you there." Without waiting for Uchiha Fugaku to reply, Uchiha Makoto slapped his hand on the floor. "I just signed the summoning contract some time ago." After the smoke passed, a small and cute cat appeared all over white. "Makoto. What do you want to call me?" The white cat uttered something, her voice unexpectedly tender, like a 7 or 8-year-old girl. It glanced at the Uchiha people around, a little confused. "Mei Yin, take us to see Granny Cat," Uchiha Makoto said. "Okay, come with me." Mei Yin nodded obediently. Haruki was a little surprised. The ninja cats have a weird temper and are quite self-willed. But this cat is alien. Haruki saw this scene for the second time. Barren ruins. The weird and cold wind blows across the festering ground, like a dry crack that has lost all of its water. Between the crevices, the accidentally surviving plants are covered with gray and black, twisted like the deepest nightmare, showing different inexplicable shapes. Looking around, there are no people. Only Ninamao Meiyin's mood is high. I couldn't help jumping around when I walked. Licking the meatball and paused too quickly, waiting for Haruki and Uchiha Makoto. Moving forward, it seemed as if the world of the apocalyptic wasteland was crammed into cat houses of different heights. Haruki kept his speed, his eyes quickly swept across all kinds of weird cats. Some are normal, others are like foxes and small brain tigers. Arrive. Mei Yin stopped. Before they could talk, 2 cats appeared in the corridor. "It's Hina Wada Huo-sama." Seeing them, Mei Yin introduced to Haruki, "If you want to see Granny Cat, you must get the trust of both of them." "Mei Yin, why did you bring another human back here?" Hina in red wagged the cat's tail and lay on the ground with a lazy tone. "Master Hina, we want to see Granny Cat." "No," Hina shook her head. "He's not Uchiha's." "Day, I'm coming." Haruki interrupted Mei Yin and walked to Hina's face. "Humans, I don't want to eat beautiful men." Hina's eyes lit up suddenly, and the pink meatball held a golden orb. "Is it enough?" Haruki smiled. "Is it enough?" Immediately its other meatball also held the same golden ball, and its eyes seemed to glow with golden light. Hina, you. Well. Tien Huo, who wanted to talk on the other side, was stuffed with a big golden ball directly in his mouth. Human, I like you, meow. Hina hid the golden ball, a smile seemed to be seen on her furry face. Let's talk. What's the matter? I want to hire 100 ninja cats. Meow? Hina looked at him suspiciously, it had never seen anything like this before. In addition to the summoning beasts, the ninja clan also sells information part-time. Why hire so many ninjas at once? Say okay first, we don't sell our bodies and catch mice. Haruki broke out in a cold sweat. What the hell is it to sell yourself? Not these. Please come with me. Hina stood up gracefully and walked toward the depths. Soon after, Haruki saw the cat mother-in-law and the cat in a big house. A human female wearing a dark gray cat ear decoration and holding a pipe. She usually runs a weapon shop and is the contractor of Nanoma. It happened not to be in the village today. Mrs. Cat, I want to hire 100 ninja cats, Haruki said straightforwardly. 100. Granny Cat stopped the pipe in her hand and looked at Haruki in surprise. If you want to do an experiment, please find a mouse. Haruki twitched at the corner of his mouth. What did the mouse do wrong? Shivering and cold. Don't worry, I won't hurt any cats. I hope to make them dance at the celebration. A question mark appeared on Granny Cat's face. Ninja dancing? She couldn't understand Haruki's thoughts. What's so nice about cat dancing? Although it is really cute, is it okay? Haruki noticed the change in her expression, which seemed a bit disadvantageous, and he added, this is paid. I pay every ninja 100,000 taels according to the standards of the B-level mission. There were bursts of inhalation sounds. Almost all the cats raised their heads. 100,000 taels, 100 is 10 million. The look in his eyes suddenly changed into the shape of money. Really? A big deal. Granny Cat took a pipe and stretched out her hand to soothe the restless ninja cat next to her. If you are willing to make a contract, I will agree to the transaction with you. Of course I do. Haruki smiled. Sure enough, money can make cats dance. Granny Cat quickly prepared the contract, and after seeing Haruki finish signing, she asked, have you signed the summoning beast? Signed. It's a pity. Grandma Man's face lost her face, and then she asked with hope, can you change it? A cold sweat broke out on Ching Shu's head. I'm afraid it's impossible, I signed Katsuyu. Granny Cat couldn't help being taken aback. Turned out to be one of the 3 holy places. It is indeed impossible to sign a summoning contract with the ninja clan. If Granny Cat wants to find a contract person, after the celebration, there may be many people willing. Why do you say that? Granny Cat doesn't believe in what a dance can do. Because the ninja clan is not strong among summoning beasts. Those who are truly strong are more inclined to the 3 holy places or some exotic beasts, such as Sancho fish, Rashomon, ape demon and so on. Haruki didn't explain, he said, I don't know if Granny Cat is willing to bet with me. If the situation is in my hands, you and I will open a new store together in 50-50, how about? Granny Cat thought for a moment and nodded. For her, there is nothing to lose. Haruki smiled, she didn't understand the cuteness of lethality. Besides, whoever said that the ninja must be bound to the ninja? After leaving, Mayin immediately asked, a rich human, can I also go dancing? Even though Uchiha Makoto treats it well, but at this moment there is an urge to change the owner. In its eyes, Harumi is simply walking money. Of course, Haruki replied. Hyuga didn't expect to be greedy for money besides gluttony. Uchiha Makoto grabbed the back of its neck and supported it with his hands. You can buy food if you have money. Uchiha Makoto raised his brows, which made sense. She stroked the soft cat hair and asked, Teacher, why should Uchiha's people do this? Haruki glanced at her, and instead of answering directly, he asked a question that seemed to be irrelevant. What do you think of Uchiha's relationship with the villagers? Uchiha Makoto was a little surprised, but very calm. Not so good, they are too proud, and they don't care about emotions when dealing with problems, which offends a lot of people. It seems you understand very clearly. Haruki said softly, if emotions are not channeled, they will only destroy the body if they are pressed in the heart. The same is true for Uchiha. If it accumulates too much, once it breaks out, it will inevitably hurt itself in Konoha. But what is the connection with this celebration you are talking about? A very serious person is suddenly found out by others, such as being confused, idiotic, like being touched by people, can't help but swallowing when seeing food, etc. What will your perception of her become? It seems cute. Uchiha Makoto thought about it carefully, and it seemed that Kushina was like this too. The so-called contrast is cute. If you want to change the inherent impression, you must show a completely different side. Moreover, the festival is a favorite way of entertainment, and Uchiha is too floating in the sky, and is gradually isolated from other villagers. Haruki looked at Uchiha Makoto's thoughtful look, slowed down, and said, "This is calling the crowd." The next day, Uchiha Makoto led a dozen little girls to the place designated by Haruki. Oh no, Uchiha Obito is not a little girl. Haruki suppressed a smile. Obito, who was at the end of the line, looked depressed. It was almost impossible to engrave the words "I am very upset" on my forehead. But he dared not come. "Have you had breakfast?" Haruki looked at Uchiha Makoto and asked. "Ate." "Okay." Haruki clapped her hands, attracting the attention of the little girls. He saw several familiar faces in it. All students in ninja school. "I am calling everyone over today in the hope that you will learn a very cute dance." Haruki summoning took out the storage scroll and moved the TV out. As it turned on, a picture of a little girl with pink hair in a black dress and white stockings lying on the desk appeared on the screen. Accompanied by the lyrics of "Demon Change into Ninja School," the secretary dance at Station B of the previous life bloodbath began. And this little girl is naturally Chika Fujiwara. After playing it again, the little girls in front of them all had their eyes shining. Cuteness is always a kill. Except Uchiha Obito. In fact, when he saw him as a boy today, he had an ominous premonition. When I saw this video, it was no longer a hunch, but a real fact. When he thought that he would dance this kind of dance at the celebration, he had the heart to die. But he obviously didn't expect the misery to be behind. Do you like her dress? Like. Konoha's solidified aesthetic has never seen such a school uniform. Coupled with the cute offensive of Shuji Wu, they are already imagining the same picture of themselves and Fujiwara Chika. "I made this dress specially for you." Haruki took out the clothes from the storage scroll and handed them out one by one. "No, I won't wear it. I won't wear it to death." Desperate, full of despair, Uchiha Obito refused and shouted all over. "Don't run." Haruki used chakra a little, grabbed Obito. "Why don't you wear it?" "I'm a man." Uchiha Obito struggled. "Men can wear it too." "You nonsense. I have never seen it before. You can see it as soon as you put it on." Uchiha Obito's face flushed, and Haruki, who smiled in front of him, was the devil of hell. "Do you have a girl you like?" Haruki asked abruptly. "What?" Uchiha Obito didn't expect such a problem at all, but he immediately thought of Rin Nohara. "No." Haruki glanced at him. The emotions of children are too easy to be seen through. Even if they don't like them, they will have good feelings. "Then do you want to be liked by girls?" There was hesitation on Uchiha Obito's face. He doesn't say that girls like it at school, and he doesn't even strike up a conversation. Ugly dressed, late, at the end of the crane, and no identity. How can you be liked? Do you have a way? Nature. Haruki looked at the girls on the side and asked with a smile, "Do you like this dance and dress up?" "Like." Haruki spread his hand and said to Uchiha Obito, "Look." "No. Uchiha Obito was a little confused for a moment, and he always felt that something was wrong. Haruki didn't give him time to sort out logical questions, and continued. "Your current image is not liked by girls. Why not try to change it? Anyway, if the effect is good, everyone will be happy. If not, then I promise you that I will find a way for you." He paused slightly and raised his fingers. "Betting on my reputation as Konoha Schwangbi will definitely make Uchiha Obito be liked by girls. As you know, I'm Tsunade's boyfriend." Perhaps the latter sentence touched him. Uchiha Obito stared into the black school uniform, thinking about it seriously for the first time. After a long time, he took a deep breath and said, "Once, just once." "Okay, you believe me. Would I still lie to you, a 3-year-old child?" Haruki put the clothes in his hands and said seriously, "Okay, let's change clothes." After a while, Uchiha Obito appeared in a dress. Haruki suppressed a smile and took out a pink wig from the storage scroll. Finally, the discordant place disappeared. 2 or 3-year-old children, with a little dress-up, are actually not clear at all whether they are male or female. "Don't laugh." Uchiha Obito frowned. "I didn't laugh." Haruki immediately denied. "You have been laughing at me, never stopped." Haruki touched his face, realized that he had accidentally laughed, and quickly coughed a few times. "Makoto, I ask you, Do you think Obito now likes him? Uchiha Makoto was slightly startled. After receiving Haruki's wink, she looked at Uchiha Obito again, and she nodded and said, I think no girl would refuse such cuteness. Really? Uchiha Obito, who had been straight-faced, was finally overjoyed when he heard these words. Yes, I promise. After Uchiha Makoto finished speaking, he couldn't help sighing. She felt guilty, and then silently remembered that I was coerced, not voluntary. Haruki patted her on the shoulder and said softly, for Uchiha, this is a necessary sacrifice. Uchiha Makoto's eyes widened suddenly. I don't see the sacrifice, but your evil taste is fully exposed. Haruki looked away and said, Teacher has something to do, I leave it to you here. People disappeared without waiting for her to react. Appeared again, already on Konoha Street. Haruki prepared 7 programs for the celebration. Uchiha and Ninamao dance. The secretary dance is one of the finale, so he personally visits the door. But the others are not so troublesome. For example, the shadow imitation technique of the Nara clan, the shadow puppet show, the content is an interception of a fight in Jiraiya's new book, the drone performance of the Aburame clan, of course the drone is a firefly. In order to prevent them from not agreeing, Haruki asked New Konoha bookstore to publish a valuable task. Ninjas may not be interested in others, but are born with a unique sense of responsibility for completing tasks. Just like a player with obsessive-compulsive disorder in the previous life, he must click the full picture book or all achievements. Almost all of Konoha's well-known families are involved. For things that do not harm their interests and can get a certain reward, they are willing to sell Haruki a face. After all, no one can guarantee that one day in the future, Tsunade and Haruki will not be asked. The top medical ninjas have their own connections. Rinwa. Haruki stopped at the door of a flower shop. Morning, Haruki-sama. Yamanaka Rinwa raised her head, put down the watering can in her hand, and wiped her hands on her apron. Do you want to buy flowers for Princess Tsunade? No, I want to reserve 10,000 roses for the celebration. Shingshu shook his head and said. With the rendering of the Konoha daily, almost everyone knew that a celebration would be held in the evening. A large section reveals the content of the celebration. Uchiha's performance, Hyuga's host, Yamanaka's flowers, the surrounding area of Sword Art Online, and Hokage's participation. The streets on the east are already busy now. Elf, knight, interpreter, Kirito, as if stepping into otherworld. And Haruki and Tsunade are watching Uchiha Obito's performance. At this moment, he didn't know whether he was abandoning himself or was enjoying it, and he couldn't see any reluctance at all. It's so cute. Tsunade fell in love with these little girls at a glance. So that when he heard that Uchiha Obito was a boy, he showed a look of astonishment. Did he have a mental problem? Based on the professional qualities of a medical ninja, Tsunade asked subconsciously. She has encountered such cases, but he noticed Haruki's expression and couldn't help raising his index finger and flicking his forehead. He's just a child, aren't you afraid of shadows when he grows up? It's no big deal just once. Haruki shrugged, besides being surrounded by so many girls, he looks very happy. What? Tsunade's face was cold, and his voice was raised for a while. Are you envious? I'm not such a superficial person. Haruki said solemnly, he should envy me because there is a girl with the most beautiful Konoha who likes me. Well, it's much more beautiful than me. Tsunade couldn't help but smile. Who said the rumors? Haruki turned her head and saw her white shoulders. I heard it too. That person must have a wrong look. Haruki put his hand on her cheek and chuckled lightly. Suggest him to come to me and I will change his eyes. Tsunade felt the warmth on his face, and when he heard his words again, he gave him a blank look. What did you say? Am I wrong? Fine, you were right. Tsunade grabbed his wicked hand. Well, did you ask me to come here just to watch them dance? It really is. Haruki thought about the interesting thing about Uchiha Obito's women's clothing. It would be a shame to have it alone. But naturally he would not say that. The celebration starts at 7 o'clock in the evening, and I will take you to a place at that time. Huh. You don't watch the celebration? Tsunade looked at him, feeling strange, but she knew that Haruki had been running around for the celebration these days, and spent a lot of money, so she didn't actually come there in person? Look, that changed to another place. Haruki pointed to Hokage Rock. We went to the mountain and the view was wide. But there is no atmosphere of a celebration. The celebration should be crowded and lively. Haruki covered his forehead. At certain moments, Tsunade's emotional intelligence really caused him a headache. It was obviously a two-person world, and you still want to be lively. It will be lively on it too. Okay. Tsunade is not stupid, but he has never been in a relationship. He is accustomed to come straight forward and see his movements and wake up in time. Haruki squeezed her cheek, smooth and delicate, so she couldn't help squeezing it a few more times, and before she glared at her, she withdrew her hand. Ahem. Let's go shopping next. Without waiting for her answer, he took Tsunade's hand and came to the street where the celebration was. A large stage was temporarily set up in the middle, and many people were busy setting up at this time. Haruki glanced at it and ignored it. Come over. He took Tsunade to a shop. A few big characters were engraved on the door. Shops around Sword Art Online. The various costumes of Sword Art Online are greeted by beautiful armors. In addition, there are knight swords, pillows, illustrations, etc. Anything you like? Haruki looked left and right. Familiar things gave him the illusion of returning to his previous life. Tsunade first noticed the Asuna armor she wore some time ago, but didn't stop too much, and soon saw the pillow. Her eyes shone slightly. The Q version is very small and cute. She picked up the black Kirito pillow, rubbed it, and it felt good. Haruki frowned slightly. Why don't you change to Asuna? Tsunade raised his head and asked with interest, why? More cute. Haruki thought of a wording. Oh? Tsunade put down his pillow, with one hand on his hips. What about me? Naturally it's you. Haruki stepped forward and stared at her. HMPH, count you through. Tsunade didn't buy a pillow in the end. He wandered around the street with Haruki and ate many unique snacks. Night fell. The streetlights are connected. Haruki and Tsunade came to the top of the mountain. The scenery of Konoha is unobstructed. It was dim on all sides, only the celebration place was as eye-catching as the moon in the night sky. Tsunade took off his shoes and sat on a large rock. What's the first show? She leaned on Haruki's shoulders with a quiet face. For a moment, the hustle and bustle of the celebration seemed far away. The stars on the top of the mountain were shining, and the world was silent and beautiful. It's a performance by the Aburame clan. Haruki thought for a while and said. As Jonin, he and Tsunade have excellent eyesight and can see the far stage clearly. Hyuga Shuin appeared in a blue cheongsam, with an elegant temperament, as if she had walked out of the painting. The long legs are faintly exposed by the slits on both sides. Many young people were enthusiastic and asked each other who she was. Even Hyuga Hiyashi almost didn't recognize it. After putting on makeup, Hyuga Shuin was so dazzling that he couldn't believe it. But it really makes people unable to look away. So he suddenly thought that he should let Hyuga wear a cheongsam when he gets married. It hurts. Haruki took a breath, looked down, and saw Tsunade pinching the soft flesh of his waist. Does it look good? Tsunade's cold eyes made Haruki shudder. I think you look better in you. HMPH, dreaming. I don't know how to wear this kind of clothes. Tsunade snorted. She couldn't satisfy Haruki's evil taste. Watching the show, we watch the show. Haruki held her face and turned slightly. Tsunade slapped his hand, and when he was about to say something, he saw a gorgeous scene. In the summer night, the fluorescence of the dancing dance suddenly lit up. They seem to be silver-plated for the darkness, and the sky is like dandelions, floating and overflowing, covering everyone's sight. So pretty. Tsunade couldn't help but said. The fireflies being manipulated kept arranging various patterns on the stage. From Konoha at the beginning, to flowers, to fonts. Like it? Haruki held her hand and said softly, you close your eyes and they will come to you. Really? Tsunade didn't believe it at all. At their speed, it would take us at least 10 minutes. But she still closed her eyes. 1, 2, 3, all right. Hearing Haruki's voice, she opened her eyes and suddenly froze. The fireflies close at hand surrounded her and Haruki, like elves in the night, constantly dancing and changing, and finally formed a line of characters. For the rest of my life, you are the wind and snow, you are the plain, you are the impoverished, you are the glory, you are the tender heart, and you are also where you look. Haruki turned his head. Tsunade's profile was illuminated by the glow of fireflies, and he smiled softly. The moonlight is so beautiful tonight. As if the stream of moonlight, a faint smoke rose up all around them. When the smoke cleared, the roses all over the mountains, like extremely grand fireworks, suddenly appeared in front of Tsunade. Tsunade couldn't help standing up, standing barefoot on the rock, his eyes reflected on the rose with no end in sight. The red color was as affectionate as the sunny tree, as if it would never fade. Yes, it's so beautiful. she said softly, as if she was complimenting the rose, and she seemed to respond to Haruki's previous words. The moonlight above her head has passed through countless light years of darkness, mixed with fireflies, like a veil, draped over her. Haruki has never seen such a beautiful scene. At the celebration in the distance, people came and went, cheers and applause one after another. The program of the Aburame clan came to an end. Hyuga Shuin came to the stage again and began to talk about the conjunctions. All this seems to have become slow motion. Tsunade turned his head to look at Haruki, and a few seconds later, he smiled brightly. She stroked his hair and said, "A waste of money. It's hard for a daughter to buy a beauty and smile." Haruki took her hand. Greasy mouth. Tsunade sat down next to him again. "It's not. I'll tell you the story of the princes of the beacon play." Haruki shook her hand. "Don't make trouble, it's too itchy." Tsunade caught his restless fingers just after hearing a few words at the beginning. "Can you tell me well? Scratch your palms, are you a kid? Are you a kid? Do you want to try?" Haruki and Tsunade's fingers were playing hide and seek. One wanted to scratch, the other wanted to stop. Naive. Tsunade flipped Byakugan, too lazy to play with him, and pulled out his hand directly. Alright, I'll continue." Haruki grabbed her hand, pulled it back, and played with it again, but this time it didn't tickle. "Let's talk, I'll listen." Tsunade curled his lips, she really had nothing to do with this guy. Chingshu smiled triumphantly and told the story of King Zhou. Tsunade listened and watched the performance on the stage. The current show is a plot in Jiraiya's novel. Naruto fights the witch of Myogi Mountain. The actor of Naruto is Namikaze Minato. This was not forced by Haruki. Just like the original, Minato liked this novel very much. When he heard that there was a stage play that could play Naruto, he ran to Haruki and said that he wanted to play Naruto. Because it was so interesting, Haruki agreed on the spot. Even to increase the drama, Uzumaki Kushina was cast as the witch. At the beginning of the rehearsal, the witch defeated Naruto. If Jiraiya sees it, he should be so angry that he vomits blood. In the end, under Haruki's persuasion, Kushina finally rehearsed according to the script, as the villain, was defeated by the protagonist of Justice. "Hey, do you want to say that my beauty is a disaster?" Tsunade yelled after hearing the death of King Zhou. "No, I'm just to show your charm. It's just Feint-kun who pushes the fault on the woman without reviewing yourself." Haruki couldn't help shaking his head. There are too many such stories in ancient times, such as the classic Nine-Tails Fox Daji. Tsunade snorted, holding his index finger on his forehead, and said, "I'm a Hokage, you have to be obedient to me. If it interferes with me, I'll. She even said two of me, but her head got stuck." "How about you?" Haruki asked her expectantly with a slanted look. "Of course it is a heavy punishment," Tsunade said viciously with a pair of scissors. "I must be very good. I will never seduce you." Haruki shrank his head, and consciously persuaded him in front of the most precious organ that concerns a man. What temptation! It's so ugly. Tsunade glared at Haruki with a speechless expression. "And what do you take me for? I'm not Fainted-kun." "Hey, it's actually good to be a Feint-kun, to sleep together. Do whatever you want, don't worry about it." "What are you talking about?" Tsunade suddenly raised her brows. Her boyfriend is obviously no less talented than her, but she is always so salty and doesn't care about anything. In her opinion, it is a waste. Haruki shut up immediately, and after a while, after her expression relaxed, she added, "Dreams, it's normal for things in dreams to be bold. You want me to be Hokage, I naturally want to, but you can't be lazy. From now on you will be my Hokage assistant." Tsunade gave him a look that you can't run away. "Secretary. I like this position. As the saying goes, if you have a secretary to do something, it's okay. Also a secretary." Although Tsunade thought Haruki's expression was a bit strange, he was relieved that he was rarely so positive. "Ah, there is something very important, I want to tell you." Haruki smiled, "Don't get excited." Tsunade was taken aback. Haruki's seriousness made her a little overwhelmed. "I was flirting and swearing in the last second. Why would I be? In the next second." She saw the roses around, did she want to? Thinking of this, her face was a little red, and her heartbeat accelerated a little. "I'm going to Sanagakure the day after tomorrow." Although it was not what he had imagined, Tsunade's heart was beating violently. "What did you say?" She leaned in front of Haruki. "You say it again, I just didn't hear it clearly." "I'll go to Sanagakure, don't worry, there is nothing dangerous." "No danger." Tsunade's face sank, pressing his head. "Are you stupid? How could there be no danger? How many ninjas died in Tsunade in the hands of our Konoha village ninjas? Do you think they will not hurt when they see you? Killer? I will take Minato, he has Flying Thunder God. Flying Thunder God is not omnipotent. Tsunade didn't want to hear him explain at all. And Minato is not my uncle, his strength is too weak. Of course he can't be compared with Master Second Hokage, but it should be fine to run with me. Do you have to go? Tsunade saw his determination and couldn't help asking. What the hell are you going to do? Talk about business. Haruki pressed her finger to her lips. Business and trade are very important. It's also about talking to Feng, and only I can talk. You can do it. Tsunade couldn't help biting his index finger, but when he saw him pulling back and licking his finger, his face flushed. If you really want to go, then I will go too. Haruki's eyes widened, ignoring the pain of his fingers, and said loudly, impossible, never. The attitude was more determined than before. Tsunade opposed him. Oh? Why? Tsunade asked triumphantly, just like Feng Shui took turns. If I go, they won't necessarily do it, but if you go, they will definitely do it. Don't forget that fellow Chio. What's the use? She can't be more poisonous than me, and she can't beat me. You are in the lair, do you say this is useful? HMPH, this sentence is also for you. Ma yeah. I really shot myself in the foot. Haruki glared at her, and Tsunade glared at him. The two did not give way to each other, staring at each other with big eyes. After a long time, the stage next door was already watching the prestigious Uchiha perform the secretary dance amidst the bluffing of the crowd eating melons. And Uchiha Fugaku covered his face, with strange gazes everywhere, very, very regretful that he came to the festival in person. The secretary dance has come to an end. When Uchiha Obito thought of Haruki's curtain call, his face blushed, and an unimaginable embarrassment came to his heart. Even though he is used to women's clothing, this is too shameful. After hesitating for a moment, he clenched his fist and placed it in front of him, with a meow in his mouth. After I finished it, my head went blank, and my eyes suddenly felt a little painful, but it disappeared quickly. Uchiha Obito lowered his head and ran off the stage. Haruki couldn't help laughing. The result was that Tsunade was very angry and knocked his forehead. I'm discussing things with you very seriously, what are you laughing at? No, Haruki pointed to the stage, just dance. Are you still distracted? Tsunade pressed his cheek and squeezed it hard. Is it time to watch the dance? Haruki blinked and said, if you do the action just now, I will let you go to Tsunade with me. Thinking beautifully. Tsunade glared at him. How can I do those shameful actions? Wow, Hyuga, you also watched it, and you scolded me. Chingshu immediately noticed the blind spot and said very aggrievedly. Tsunade was a little embarrassed at once, retracted his hand, his eyes slightly deflected, but you still laughed. Haruki touched her previously pinched face, thinking that you don't know what Obito will do in the future, otherwise you will be happy too. Really not. No. Don't do it. Tsunade hesitated, but he was very determined. HMPH, then you are not allowed to go. Haruki approached her, pointed at her, and said, I will do what I say, and then I will find a time to run away in the middle of the night. You. Tsunade was so angry that he opened his mouth and took a bite of his finger. Why are you biting again? Haruki took out his index finger and looked at the row of teeth marks on it. He couldn't help but get angry. You are not a dog. Tsunade raised his head triumphantly. Haruki's eyes narrowed. I'll give you the last chance, otherwise. How about it? Tsunade said with his arms akimbo, almost riding me arrogantly on his face. Otherwise. Haruki suddenly turned over and pressed her against the rock. You. What do you want to do? Tsunade's heart trembled and she was about to struggle to get up, but the next moment, she felt her ass being hit hard, and her body trembled, her face flushed, asshole. Haruki hugged her waist, and through the thin clothes, she could clearly feel the curves and changes of her body. Ah! Tsunade couldn't help exclaiming. After a few consecutive clicks, I can't do it. Haruki hurriedly got up, and the harm was done, and he was also very uncomfortable now. But seeing Tsunade posing as a kitten, he couldn't help but smile. It's a cat ear. Enough. Tsunade gave him a blank look, but his voice was not angry, but a delicate voice. A numbness suddenly rose in Haruki's heart. All right. He patted his knee. Tsunade curled his mouth and leaned his head against his thigh. The following show is Ninja Cat. Haruki saw the celebration in the distance and said, you should like this show. Tsunade measured his body and looked towards the stage. A lot of cute cats, accompanied by brainwashing songs, began to dance. What song is this? The Pure Land of Bliss. It's so cute. Well, I plan to open a cat cafe in Konoha. Haruki explained the meaning of Mauka to her again. Really, someone would go to such a store because of a cat? Tsunade is a little bit unable to understand. Although the cat is cute, she will not drink coffee because of it. The joy of running a cat is unclear. You have to experience it yourself. Haruki squeezed her face. The soft touch and the sensuality made him laugh. Besides, ninja cats are quite smart. As long as they can make money and please humans, they are very good at them. He thought of the cats in the cat cafes of the previous life. Some of them were too cold to be touched. But Shinobu is different. No need to sign a summoning contract, no need to do tasks, just lie down to make money. Not only cats, but even humans want to do this kind of work. It's a pity that many humans are illegal, but cats are legal. I found out that you have fallen into the eyes of money recently. Tsunade said, really to make money, not even the cat. Kunzi loves to get money in a good way. I make money normally, not to mention that this is not for you to become Hokage in the future. Can you be rich? Oh? Tsunade turned to look at him. For me? Not bad. Tsunade stretched out his hand to wrap his neck around his neck and kissed him on the cheek with a slight pressure on his upper body. It's worth the reward. What about this side? Haruki tilted his face to the left. Only one side is asymmetrical. It's cheaper for you. Tsunade gushed fiercely, and touched his left cheek again. Very good. Haruki nodded in satisfaction, then remembered Sanagakure's affairs, and said, if you go out with me, you may have to use transformation technique, otherwise it will be too troublesome. Yeah. Tsunade said softly, as long as he can accompany him. As for the danger, the less the better. So about your image, can I make a small request? You say? How about lowly with long silver hair? Tsunade stared at him suspiciously. What do you mean? No, I think that since I want to change my face, I must have an identity. I plan to take Minato. You can just turn into a 10-year-old girl and count as my student. It seems to make sense. Tsunade thought for a moment. Let's do it. It's called Izumi Sagiri, Haruki suggested. Tsunade became alert, but his expression remained as usual, seeming to be a name that came to mind very casually. After looking at him a few times, he was sure that he hadn't heard of Izumi Sagiri before, so he let Haruki go. The celebration is one show after another. The final, Sword Art Online, stage play begins. Excerpt from the paragraph where Asuna was imprisoned. When the elves dressed in sexy pajamas, Asuna appeared on the stage. Sarutobi Hiruzen blushed abruptly, but fortunately, there were so many people who performed the same way as him. Only Haruki ushered in Tsunade's poisonous claws again. How did you guy come up with such nasty clothes? I was wrong. Haruki sucked in the air, and quickly grabbed Tsunade's right hand at the waist. If I have a problem with my waist, you will regret it in the future. Tsunade was stunned, and reacted. The red was at the base of his ears, but his hands were harder. Haruki immediately begged for mercy. I didn't write this novel, you can't blame me. Huh. Isn't there any credit for you? It's only 1/3 at most, but it's definitely not my full responsibility. Haruki smiled. Tsunade released his hand and gave him a blank look. She didn't believe him. Only seeing that he was indeed in some pain, let him go. In the distance, in Hyuga Kaoru's concluding remarks, this extraordinary celebration finally ended. But the lingering rhyme didn't stop. There was hardly any weak talk in Konoha village about the celebration in the next few days. The first dispute with his girlfriend Tsunade, he was rewarded with Earth-style Earth Dynamic Core. Girlfriend Tsunade dresses up as a cat for the first time, and gets the reward harem technique. The first time I watched the celebration with my girlfriend Tsunade, I got the reward wood-style Lenju's house. Punishing girlfriend Tsunade for the first time, get rewards wood-style laughing Buddha jutsu. The 4 consecutive system beeps made Ching Shu feel satisfied, but what the hell is harem technique? This kind of shameful ninjutsu is absolutely impossible for him to use. The reward can only be wasted once. Haruki flipped through the memories in his mind and came to the street where Uchiha was. It's not Uchiha Makoto or Obito, but the cat mother. Besides, this guy Obito has been hiding from Haruki since the show last night. It's a pity that there is no way to share the joy with him. Haruki couldn't help shook his head. He stopped in front of Granny Cat's weapon shop. It was only 7 or 8 in the morning, but at the moment it was full of guests. Haruki raised his eyebrows. He didn't believe that he would come to buy weapons early in the morning. And this weapon shop was originally dedicated to Uchiha. He entered the store quietly and listened for a while with a smile on his face. It seems that he won the bet with Granny Cat. But Granny Cat's behavior made him shake his head. I don't know how to make money at all. It's still the same thing, doing tasks, selling intelligence or summoning contracts, and all the poor ones refuse. Mrs. Cat. Hearing a familiar voice, Granny Cat saw Haruki. The expression was dreadful. She didn't even notice it at all. If you want to engage in assassination, I am afraid I will not be able to react. It was really incredible that a medical ninja had such a sneaking technique. Haruki, I don't know if you can confuse me for one or two. After the cat mother handed the matter to Hina, she came to Haruki. You mean the situation in front of you? Seeing her nodding, Haruki smiled mysteriously. This is because you don't know the charm of cats. The charm of cats? Granny Cat repeated it several times, but still didn't understand. It's hard to say clearly, you will understand after you and I have opened a cat cafe. Haruki pointed to Hina, who was flaring her teeth and claws because of the crowd, but the crowd did not feel any irritation. Instead, her eyes were bright. They came here not because of the cats, but because of the cats. Granny Cat was even more puzzled. Isn't he the ninja cat a cat? Please look at this. Haruki took out the cat cafe planning book and handed it to her. This is about some things about our joint store. Simply put, you provide the cat, I provide the venue, and the profit is half. Not the summoning contract? Use cats to receive guests? After reading it quickly, Granny Cat was taken aback and asked, can this really make money? Of course. With the help of the east wind from last night's celebration, we can save a lot of publicity. Granny Cat thought for a moment, and this plan was very friendly to her. Because she hardly paid any price. The ninja clan has many ninjas who do nothing, but now they just change places. I agree to your terms. Granny Cat signed the planning book as a contract. I will call the ninja cat to Konoha tomorrow. Just use the ninja I hired last night. Also. Well, tomorrow the Konoha Daily will carry out further publicity, and at the same time open a store discount, and the first 3 days will be free of charge. Haruki smiled. Free things are the most expensive, and cats will be addicted. When you get used to it, it will be difficult to quit, and then you will collect money. By the way, there is one more thing. If someone wants to buy a ninja cat to go home or sign a summoning contract, don't agree and change to a lease contract. Why is this? It's too easy to get, and you don't always know how to cherish it. The harder it is to get, the more they want to get it, and the greater the price they are willing to pay. Granny Cat's eyes widened, looking at Haruki with a calm expression. A thought came to mind. Are you the devil? Sure enough, I am not suitable for business. Happy cooperation. Haruki smiled and stretched out his hand. Happy cooperation. Granny Cat shook her hand and came to the crowd and said loudly, everyone, please listen to me. If you are interested in cats, please come to the new cat cafe next door at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's really annoying. Hina jumped in front of Haruki, who was frightened by the passionate human beings. In just a few minutes, it felt a lot of Salty Pig's hands stroking everywhere on its beautiful hair. It's because Miss Hina, you are so cute. Haruki learned its mouth addiction, smiled and passed a golden ball, then raised its head. Hina hummed comfortably, seeing that she didn't refuse the bribe. After the guests left, the weapon shop was quiet again. Granny Cat saw Haruki touching Hina and couldn't help but smile. I didn't expect Hina to like you quite a bit. Haruki shrugged. It doesn't like me, it just likes my money. He retracted his hand and said, when the matter is over, I will leave first. Tomorrow I will send someone to take charge of Mao Ka. Since graduating from the 5th and 6th grades of the ninja school, Haruki has never taught a student again. Mainly too busy. The front foot war is over, the back foot is the preparation for the celebration. And now it is going to Tsunade soon. There is no time to play with those familiar children. Such as Uchiha Obito, Hitaki Kakashi, Sarutobi Asuma, Yurihong and so on. He came to the 3rd exercise field. Now this is about to become an exclusive exercise field for Namikaze Minato, Uzumaki Kushina and Uchiha Makoto. Haruki's eyes narrowed slightly. Saw Kushina and Minato fighting each other. Teacher. Makoto, who was squatting on the side, stood up immediately while leaning on the fox. The little fox who lost his massage was a bit at a loss. After a while, he rubbed his head against Makoto's white socks. Haruki nodded. He looked at the battle in the field and commented, Minato's progress is beyond my imagination.
Kushina's sealing technique is really not suitable for frontal combat.
Well, Kushina also told me about these things, but I only know fire style. Haruki thoughtfully. Uzumaki Kushina has 3 types of chakra attributes: wind, water, and yin.
So learning Rasengan is a wonderful move. But most of her son's Rasengan series are related to the tail monster and sage mode. She is currently easier to learn A-level wind style Rasengan. Maybe it would be better to let Kushina go to Uzumaki Mido to study. When Haruki thought of this, he had already made a decision. He goes to Tsunade. Kushina is absolutely impossible. Even if he agrees, Sarutobi Hiruzen will not agree. So the ones that can be taken are Minato and Makoto. Haruki raised his head, and the two people's exchanges just ended. Seeing Kushina's unwilling expression on his face, he beckoned and said, "Kushina, in the afternoon I will let Tsunade take you to a place where you can beat Minato." Real. Uzumaki Kushina gave a cheer, trot over, hugged him, "Thank you, teacher." Seeing this scene, Namikaze Minato couldn't help showing a look of envy. "Don't move. Hey, don't move after you said. What's the matter?" Tsunade looked at Haruki running over with a dazed expression. "You have white liquid stuck to your shoulder."
Haruki looked at her strapless pajamas, with foam on her smooth white skin. "It should be toothpaste." He wiped it casually and pointed to her mouth. "You must have leaked it from here." "Why am I still thinking about it?" Tsunade's face suddenly collapsed. Speaking so seriously, it turned out to be such a trivial matter. "Where are the little things?" Haruki put her arms around her chest, and said seriously, "The things that affect your beauty are big things." "Pooh." Tsunade spit out the toothpaste foam and gave him a white look. "Don't say this when I brush my teeth." But the slight smile on the corner of her mouth showed that she was in a good mood. "My fault." Haruki raised her hand, stopped talking, and followed her to brush her teeth. He set up his toothbrush and glass, and asked, "What do you want for breakfast?" "Let's go down." "Okay." Chingshu glanced at her and said, "Our famous dandan noodles in Sichuan and Sichuan." Tsunade suddenly became interested. She had never eaten this noodles. What a strange name. "Because in our place, the first such noodles were sold by vendors, so we got this name." After a brief explanation, Haruki took out pork, noodles, sprouts, green onion, ginger and garlic in the refrigerator. What he got first was the sauce. Chop the pork into fillings, add green onion, ginger, garlic, etc., stir fry, and add sesame and pepper to the pan. After that, the noodles are boiled, and after they are cooked, they are poured with broth and fried sauce. "Eat coriander?" No, I'm not used to the smell of coriander." Sitting at the table waiting to eat noodles, Tsunade shook his head when he heard the word coriander. Haruki didn't force it either. Some people are really not used to it. There are hautainia cordata in Sichuan cuisine, which is even more difficult. Put in a few slices of cabbage. He brought a bowl of noodles over. "It smells good." Tsunade felt that the salivary glands in his mouth were secreting saliva. He picked up his chopsticks, stirred it a few times, and then sucked and ate. Haruki couldn't help smiling when she saw her appearance. He did not rush his chopsticks. "Forgot to ask you yesterday, what happened to Kushina after seeing her grandmother?" "Very happy." Tsunade said. "Grandma is also very happy. After all, she is the only remaining member of the clan." Haruki nodded. No matter what happened in the original book, but now he is his own student, it would be nice to be happy. He hopes that Kushina can get along with Nine Tails as equals as her son, and then her strength will be maximized. "Are you full?" Tsunade's bowl has bottomed out. Haruki pushed his own bowl. "Mine can give it to you." "No," she shook her head. "Since I met you, I feel I have gained a lot." "Where is fat?" Haruki stirred up the noodles. "I feed you." Tsunade snorted. "I'm not a kid." Haruki was silent for a moment. It's really not a kid, but emotional intelligence. "Hey, don't think I can't tell you are calling me stupid." Tsunade stood on tiptoe, straightened up, bit his chopsticks, and sucked the noodles into his mouth with a squeak. She squinted her crescent eyes and said triumphantly, "I don't need you to feed." Haruki thought about it. This guy is hopeless. He picked up the noodles and continued to finish. "I'll wash the dishes." Tsunade grabbed the noodle bowl and chopsticks in his hand and went to the sink. Haruki stood behind her and smiled. "Do you want me to help?" "Although I don't cook much, I still know how to wash dishes." Tsunade didn't look back. His tone was a little dissatisfied. "Good job." Chingshu stepped forward, placed it on her smooth shoulder, and gently massaged it. "Hey, don't make trouble." Tsunade felt a warm touch, and his voice trembled slightly. Why am I making trouble? Itchy. Tsunade stopped the movement in his hand, turned his head and glared at him. Remove your hand. Alright. Haruki let go of her shoulders, and the moment she turned her gaze, he blew a breath in her ear. Bang. Tsunade's body became soft, and his legs tensed subconsciously, but the bowl in his hand slipped out. Haruki. Loud and angry voices sounded. And Haruki had already run away with oil on the soles of his feet. Tsunade stomped his feet, swept the debris into the trash can, and washed the rest. And Haruki had changed clothes and was waiting for her in the living room. Tsunade snorted with dissatisfaction, but quickly went back to the room to take off his pajamas and change to his daily outfit. Transformation technique. Haruki reminded. I know. Tsunade began to seal, and after the smoke passed, there appeared a little girl with snow-white skin, long silver-white hair, aqua-blue pupils, petite figure, and pitiful features. Haruki's eyes shimmered slightly. I feel that transformation technique is a good thing. Satisfied? Tsunade saw his thoughts and gave him a blank look. But the current figure and appearance, without any deterrent, on the contrary added a bit of cuteness. Ahem, no one should recognize you now, let's go. Haruki took her little hand and ran out of Konoha village. I thought Haruki-sama didn't dare to come. Representative of San Shinobi, Higashinobayashi waited for a long time, with some sarcasm in his tone. Seeing Tsunade again, he frowned and said, You are a leisurely mood. This is not a travel. You also brought 3 children with you. It seems that your grievance is a bit big. Haruki was unmoved, and said calmly, Since it's a defeated army, why is there any nonsense? Dongyelin's face suddenly sank. But he really didn't dare to do it. He was very frustrated, but he had to keep calm on the face. Master Haruki, when you are ready, let's go. That's right. How nice everyone is to be friendly. Haruki patted him on the shoulder as he passed by, and said earnestly. Dongyelin's body trembled slightly, but he didn't say anything. Master Haruki. The 2 Hyuga family members said hello immediately. 1 man and 1 woman. All of them are ordinary talents in Hyuga's family, but quite talented in business. One is called Hyuga Seion, who is in charge of the fruit business, and the other is called Hyuga Sayori, who is in the jade business. It just happened to be somewhat related to what Haruki wanted to do. In addition to the 2 of them, there are Namikaze Minato and Uchiha Makoto. It was because he saw Haruki with 3 children that Higashi sneered. But after Haruki's education, he has corrected his evil and returned to righteousness, at least on the surface. Because it was a long journey, considering the strength of the 2 Hyuga families, a carriage was specially prepared. That. Teacher. Who is this? Namikaze Minato finally couldn't help asking when seeing Haruki holding the silver-haired little girl sitting on his lap. He wanted to ask from the beginning, Tsunade. Because the cars were all Konoha's ninjas, Haruki didn't hide it either. The rest of the people suddenly opened their eyes when they heard it. They felt a headache when they thought that Tsunade would follow. Originally, a sunny tree was enough for them to Alexander, plus a Tsunade, they were known, I am afraid they will die. But the 2 of them have the biggest status, and the 4 of them dare not say anything. From the country of fire to the country of rain, to the country of wind, the weather suddenly heats up, as if passing through the summer from the rainy season, a giant sun is like a furnace, burning the earth unscrupulously. The excess heat evaporates the water of every creature on the earth. Haruki opened the curtains, chakra injected into the air, and suddenly a cool breeze surging inward from the outside of the car. The 5 Tsunade breathed a sigh of relief, and their tight bodies gradually relaxed as they felt cool. Teacher, there is a small town in the distance. Namikaze Minato suddenly shouted. Haruki raised his head, looking through the car window, he saw an oasis 100 meters away. It's like a twisted oil painting. Green is the only life, black is the trace left by firestyle, yellow is the mess after the quicksand swept away, and human beings are more like an insignificant embellishment. They are wearing clothes that are full of holes. No, it is more suitable to be called cloth, and they are indifferent even if they are gone. The face is yellow and muscled, unkempt, and numb. The house is skewed, and there may be no money to repair before there is time. The fertile fields that flowed through the lake further out were gone, replaced by fire and windblade marks. It shows that this place has been affected by the fighting. Some people raised their heads and noticed Haruki and the others, but they didn't respond much. At this point, no matter what it is difficult for them to change their emotions. The world seemed to become a mirror. The outside of the mirror is bright and beautiful, and the inside of the mirror is ruined. While the rich wine and meat smell, the road with frozen bone. There is nothing more than this, teacher. Uchiha Makoto couldn't bear to look any more, turned around and asked, let's help them. How to help? Haruki retracted his gaze and shook his head expressionlessly. Give them food and clothing. You saved it for a while, not a lifetime. Besides, do you think it's just this town? The whole war zone is the same. Konoha village still has enough power to save the part of the country of fire, but what about Tsunade? They usually rely on external purchases of grain, so how can they have surplus grain now? Having said this, he suddenly gave a cold snort. The lords and nobles of the Kingdom of Wind may have food, but most of them would rather stay in the granary to get moldy than take out relief. Why? Uchiha Makoto was puzzled. Because they are afraid of starving to death. The more food they hoard, the more they feel safer, and these civilians are of little benefit to them. How could this be? Uchiha Makoto murmured with a shock. It's the best of both worlds to take the opportunity to raise the price and make a fortune. The corner of Haruki's mouth set off ridicule, and the nobles were born in pursuit of profit. As long as they can maintain their dominant position. Both civilians and ninjas are tools. It's just that the ninja is a little more advanced and dangerous, and they treat them differently. But the essence is the same. Haruki scanned everyone's expressions. Uchiha Makoto and Tsunade are unbearable. Namikaze Minato was thoughtful. After Haruki's teaching, he gradually understood the power and meaning of civilians, and began to try to solve the problem. However, due to the limitations of knowledge, it is difficult for him to come up with a good solution. Minato. Haruki took out the storage scroll, go and help them. Namikaze Minato was startled slightly. He thought that Haruki had already decided not to help. Go ahead. Haruki did not explain, and urged again. Okay. Minato took the storage scroll, kunai appeared in his hand and galloped towards the town. After a while, the person disappeared. Haruki sighed. He is not really hard-hearted. Such a scene, at the beginning of his journey, he had personally experienced it. Without Tsunade, he would have already died. Although he had a clear understanding before, but at this moment, he truly realized that Konoha's reforms were far from enough, and the country of fire might even better raise the schedule. His original plan was to control the country of fire through Konoha's transformation, and carry out reforms from top to bottom. After a while, Namikaze Minato returned. Haruki saw through his supervision that people in the town were bowing in their direction. Hope appeared in his numb eyes. At least it is the hope of short-lived survival. Minato, if you are funging, what should you do at this time? Haruki took the storage scroll, looked at his slightly agitated face, and asked. Namikaze Minato condensed when he heard the words, thought for a while, and said, notify the daimyo and save people together. Moderate practice. It is also the most appropriate approach. According to the current situation, daimyo and funging perform their respective duties. If funging intervenes without authorization, it may cause the daimyo's dissatisfaction. Moreover, Tsunade itself has been aided by the daimyo for a long time, and he is powerless to save people, so he can only hope for the daimyo. Da Ming may not be saved, but the food that can really reach them is inconsistent. Why? Namikaze Minato asked. Lateral exploitation. With a faint smile on Haruki's face, this is the nobleman. No matter what gets into their hands, they must find a way to keep some. They don't care what civilians can get. And daimyo won't knowing. He can only get news that the food has been distributed. Everyone was silent. Minato and Makoto have not been in contact with the nobles and don't know much about them. But the two of Tsunade and Hyuga are quite aware of their qualities. When a chicken crosses the border, there is probably only one chicken feather in the end. No matter in which time and space, in which country, only the existence of nobles, there must be such a result. This is determined by the system. Unless the lifeblood master is in the hands of the country. Haruki smiled. What should you do at this time? Namikaze Minato was a little uncertain and said, try to get the daimyo to replace these nobles and replace them with impartial officials. The solution to the symptoms, not the root cause. Haruki waved his hand. How can you be sure that it must be a fair guy? The so-called knowing people, knowing the face and not knowing the heart. If it is still the case secretly, wouldn't it be more dangerous? Minato froze for a moment, then fell into a bitter thought. Haruki waited for a while, but didn't hear the answer. After all, Minato grew up in this system, and he would never think of overthrowing it without anyone mentioning it. Teacher, what can I do? Minato raised his head and asked honestly. Change a system. What? Minato was shocked, unable to react. Are there other systems? It's nothing. I just talked about my thoughts and said casually, don't take it to heart. Haruki shrugged, after all, we are just ninjas. It doesn't matter what we do. Namikaze Minato glanced, his expression seemed to be the same as before. Just a ninja? But it doesn't have to be a ninja. He felt that there was something in Haruki's words, but since he said that, he couldn't ask again. The group of people is getting closer and closer to Tsunade. Although Haruki has a lot of food, it has been exhausted without helping a few small towns. The chamber of Tsunade. Third Kazekage is waiting for news. He was wearing a white wind and shadow robe with a blue ninja suit, with a hairstyle similar to Namikaze Minato, with an explosive head. On the opposite side sat two small old men, Chio and Ebizo. After a while, Anbu wearing a ghost mask appeared in front of the three of them, and after saluting, handed over the scroll. Third Kazekage waved his hand and Anbu left. He opened the scroll. The news is true. Konoha Schwangbi's Haruki came with the team. What the hell is he here? Doubts appeared on Chio's wrinkled face. During the last war, she was quite impressed with Tsunade and Haruki, a medical couple. The two joined forces to make her poison almost useless. Compared with fighting ninjas, medical ninjas are a rare and precious type of ninja. If Tsunade had a medical ninja like Haruki, it would never be possible for him to go to the enemy village. Even if it has been reconciled. Because once it is lost, if you want to cultivate again, it is not reproducible. The ghosts knew how much they Tsunade wished to have a medical ninja like Tsunade and Haruki. In the original book, Tsunade's medical ninja is not even comparable to Haruno Sakura after apprenticeship, let alone Tsunade. According to the above, he came with two civilian businessmen from the Hyuga family to negotiate business with Tsunade. After Third Kazekage finished speaking, he knocked on the scroll and shook his head. He didn't believe it. Chio and Ebizo didn't believe it either. If it's really a business talk, you don't need him to come in person. Because of his rarity, you can't be suspected of being involved. Chio said with a heavy face, the analysis said. Tsunade has just suffered a heavy loss. If Sarutobi Hiruzen had any conspiracy to be displayed by Haruki's hand at this time, it would be difficult for them to bear any price. Do they behave strangely on the road? Ebizo opened his eyes, and as he spoke, his long white eyebrows moved like a beard. There is one thing. Third Hokage stared at the few lines on the scroll, and said in a puzzled manner, they used food to rescue a lot of civilians on the border of the Kingdom of Wind. The preliminary estimate is 2,000 to 3,000 people. Chio frowned suddenly, she didn't believe that Haruki would have such a kind heart. They are ninjas, not philanthropists, and they are destined to be cruel, and it is absolutely impossible for them to give out such a large amount of food for free because of their compassion. Master Fengying, send Anbu to investigate what they said when they distributed the food, and to check whether the food is stinky. I meant it. Third Kazekage nodded, he agreed with Chio. No matter what his purpose is, but since I came to Tsunade, he can't let him be the master. Ebizo snorted, if he dares to make trouble, give us a legitimate reason, and then he will be detained directly. If it is not necessary, there is no need to move him. Third Kazekage sighed, the situation is not good for us. Tsunade is too poor to withstand the toss in a short time. Ebizo moved his lips, but did not say any more, and fell silent. Among the 5 major villages, Tsunade has the worst geographical environment and the worst development. In terms of economy, perhaps even half of the rich Konoha village can't match. No matter how strong Fengying-sama is, it is difficult for a clever woman to cook without rice. I have fought Haruki many times, which is considered an old acquaintance, so I will explore his bottom first, Chio said. In that case, when they arrive, I will ask them to take a rest and see you later. Third Kazekage agreed to Chio's suggestion. He thought slightly and said, the hospitality standard shouldn't be too low. Let Rosa go for me. Although Haruki prepared a large amount of food, there were too many civilians who had no choice but to suffer. So that in the second half of the journey, everyone's mood was not very good. However, the passage of time does not depend on human will. The long journey finally came to an end. Tsunade. Even if it is sunny and sunny, you can clearly feel the yellow sand in the air. They rub against the skin and bring an uncomfortable experience. A group of people put on sand masks even earlier. Haruki looked at Tsunade, and the windy sand was faintly like a layer of silk covering the yellow building. Because of the lack of wood and stone, the houses are made of yellow sand, uniform and monotonous, but quite desert-like. Haruki couldn't help but think of the area formerly known as the western regions of flower growers in the previous life. Similar to Tsunade. But with the efforts of generations of people, poverty has disappeared. Exotic beauties, singing and dancing, grapes and wine, populous Euphratica camel. Haruki retracted his gaze and looked at the group of ninjas that came by. The leader is his old acquaintance, Chiyo. Next to her is a 17-year-old young man with short brown hair and a black ninja suit. The apprentice of 3rd Kazekage, the future 4th Kazekage, Gaara's father, Luo Sha. Haruki had seen him on the battlefield, and it wasn't the first time I saw him. But today is different from the past. They are not enemies, but alliances in a sense. Welcome. Luo Sha said hello very calmly, and bowed slightly. The teacher is temporarily unable to come due to some circumstances. I will be greeted by me instead of the teacher. Senior Qingshu and all the boats and cars are tired. Take a rest first, and see the teacher tomorrow. Please come with me, the room is ready. Chiyo didn't speak. The group of ninjas behind her was also silent. But Haruki observed the hatred in their eyes. If he guessed correctly, this should be Tsunade combat unit. They and another puppet unit, called the trump card in Sand Shinobi, are the most difficult and strongest unit. Haruki has seen their combat effectiveness with his own eyes. It is also true that their hatred is the deepest, because these two units have always been the focus of Konoha village, and countless ninjas have sacrificed. Haruki glanced at Minato and others. Except for Tsunade, the others are in Tsunade for the first time. They are curious about the different buildings and styles, and they have been looking around. Thank you, Luo Sha. Haruki nodded softly without refusing. As for 3rd Kazekage, he probably guessed what he thought. But he came with sincerity. Although Haruki and his team had only 6 in total, Tsunade generously rented a hotel for them. The food will be served soon. Luo Sha waved her hand, and immediately a ninja left. I won't bother you. After he left, Haruki nodded and said, sit down, everyone. It's a rare visit to try Tsunade's delicacies. Guyu in Uchiha Makoto's eyes turned slowly, and she said, teacher, there are many people watching outside. This is normal. They definitely don't worry about us. Haruki didn't care either. It's really strange that there are no talents. The food came quickly. A full table, full of wine and meat, all in all, very rich. Haruki picked up the chopsticks and directly placed Namikaze Minato's wrist. Poisonous. Haruki and Tsunade looked at each other and said softly, I have never seen this kind of poison, but the technique is familiar. Hokage ninja mentions poison, and most people think of the summoning beast, Sanshofish, from Hanzo, the leader of Rain Shinobi village. Strictly speaking, it is a biological poison. The nano-level poisonous insect rooted by Aburame in Konoha village is also of this kind. In addition, puppet masters and medical ninjas are quite good at making poison and detoxifying. Such as Sasori, Chiyo, and Tsunade of Red Sand. It's Chiyo. Tsunade said with a glance. Namikaze Minato shook his hand and quickly put down his chopsticks. He has heard of the great names of thousands of generations a long time ago. The others also stopped moving obediently. Haruki smiled, turned to look out the door, and said, Mother-in-law, why should you be shy now that you are here? With a creak, the door slowly opened. Chiyo, less than 1 meter and 5 meters, appeared in front of everyone. She first looked curiously at the strange silver-haired loli next to Haruki. Just now Tsunade said her name, which surprised her, but soon her eyes fell on Haruki. I haven't seen it for a long time, Haruki, your level has not fallen at all, you can see the poison in the vegetables at a glance. But I am very surprised why you didn't solve it. Chiyo smiled faintly, isn't it impossible to untie it? That's why he called me out. Haruki also laughed. He raised his chopsticks and pointed at her remotely. I didn't expect a 1000-generation mother-in-law to be strong, and still eager to compete. Not to mention, I will introduce you, my student, Izumi Sagiri. His other hand touched Tsunade's silver hair. Chiyo is a little puzzled, is it time to introduce his apprentice? However, what Haruki said in the next second made her angry. This kind of poison does not need me to act, my students can solve it. Really? Chiyo suppressed his anger and looked at Tsunade. She admitted that this Izumi Sagiri made her a little interested, but she never believed that she could solve her own poison, and she even thought that Haruki could not solve it in a short time. Having lived for most of her life, she still has this confidence. It's true or not, you can tell by a try. Haruki shrugged, Sagiri, leave it to you. Tsunade's face condensed. If it weren't for Chiyo in front of her, she would definitely give Haruki a big Byakugan. But also because there are outsiders, she will not save her face. Chiyo stared at Haruki uncertainly, his expression so strong that it made her feel ridiculous. Haruki leaned on the wooden chair and watched Tsunade quietly. In Hokage Ninja, detoxification is not just like drugs, but chakra. With the light green bubbles rising from the meal, Chiyo's expression became extremely ugly. Teacher, all right. Tsunade left chakra and said calmly. Under the table, she gently stepped on Haruki to show her dissatisfaction. Haruki was naturally unwilling to show weakness and rubbed her long legs a few times. Thanks for your hard work. Haruki's expression remained unchanged, and he stretched out his hand and patted Tsunade on the shoulder, then looked at Chiyo, who doubted his life. He picked up the chopsticks and took a bite of the meat. Well, it tastes good. Mother-in-law, what do you think? Chiyo was silent. She had never thought of such a result. But she is not someone who can't afford to lose. It seems that you have accepted a good apprentice. Chiyo took a deep look at Tsunade and asked, are you not afraid to take her to our Sanagakure and die halfway? Haruki raised his eyebrows and said straightforwardly, Mother-in-law, you don't have to test anything. The purpose of my coming has been made clear, in order to negotiate business with you. Chiyo waved his hand and hummed softly, since you don't want to tell me, let's talk to Master Fengying tomorrow. Haruki opened her mouth and sighed as she looked at her leaving back. Why doesn't anyone believe the truth? After all, he is out of place. In this world of ninjas, economy is not important, they prefer ninjutsu and the limit of blood. Hiss. Haruki looked down and saw Tsunade's white arms and fingers stuck in his thighs. He quickly took her little hand. What are you doing? Bad taste. Tsunade's big beautiful eyes turned upwards, revealing the whites of his eyes. But her current image, with such actions, is really pure and lovely. Haruki squeezed her delicate chin, and said, before we come, we have said that you have to pretend to be my apprentice. But I didn't let you bully an old woman. Tsunade shook her head. She still admires Chiyo, and she rarely sees a ninja who can match her in terms of drugs. This is not an example. Haruki resisted the urge to kiss on her cheek, let go of her hand, turned her head and saw the four people in front of him with a look of indecent expression, couldn't help but smile. Well, there is no poison now, everyone, let's eat. After that, take a good rest and see Fengying tomorrow. Everyone immediately picked up the chopsticks. Haruki ate Sanagakure's food for the first time, but in general, it will still be. After eating and drinking, Minato and others went to their rooms. Haruki hugged her soft body in Tsunade's staring eyes and went up the stairs. Which room do you want to sleep in? Tsunade pointed his finger casually and said, let me down, I'm not a real little girl. It's okay, it's not heavy anyway. Haruki thinks you think I'm stupid. How could such a good opportunity be given up? As the saying goes, Loli has 3 good points. He has experienced the top 2. Tsunade shook his head helplessly, letting him hold himself. But the road will come to an end. Get a good rest, Haruki said. He didn't take advantage anymore. Although his girlfriend is not a good advantage, in a sense he is quite well-mannered. Good night. Tsunade thought for a while, jumped out of the bed, returned to his original form, gave him a hug, and pushed him out of the room. Haruki was slightly startled. He hasn't reacted yet, he is already in the hallway. This guy is still a little shy. It seems that the effort has been increased. Haruki smiled and went back to his room. The next morning, after dinner, the 6 people, led by Luo Sha, came to Fengying's office. In addition to third Cage, there are 2 consultants, Chiyo and Ebizo. Haruki, long time no see. Third Cage greeted faintly, with no good feelings in his words. This is also normal. If it's too friendly, Haruki might have to consider running away. Master Fengying, last time you farewell, your style remains the same. Haruki smiled kindly, extremely sincerely. Third Cage's expression instantly condensed. He had known Haruki beforehand and his character, but he always felt that such a sunny smile contained different meanings. He sat down. After a while, he suddenly smiled. I'm curious why you came to Sanagakure yourself. If you are not careful, you might die here. That's not necessarily. Haruki patted Tsunade's tight shoulders and said, if you want the whole Sanagakure to be buried for me, you don't need to do it, I can break it myself now. The atmosphere in the office suddenly solidified. The placer gold rotates, like a drill head rushing towards the sunny tree. Although Luo Sha is the apprentice of third Cage and inherited his magnet style, the form of expression is different. Third cage manipulates sand iron, while Luo mixes sand gold into sand to increase weight and density. The attack on Haruki was undoubtedly the work of Rosa. At this time, he was far from the calmness of Fengying, and he was younger and more energetic. He was irritated by Haruki's words and shot subconsciously. But Haruki did nothing. At the moment when he was about to touch his body, a black shadow blocked him at an extremely fast speed, and his hands went directly into the drill bit formed by dust, breaking his chakra for life. Haruki tilted her head, and the cuffs shattered by dust revealed a dark, non-human arm. Puppet. He narrowed his eyes and followed the chakra line to see Chiyo. Losa. How could Haruki be a guest from afar, so rude? Chiyo's face was slightly dark, his fingers twitched, and the puppet returned to her. Luo tugged at the corner of her mouth stiffly, put her hand down, but said nothing. The atmosphere solidified again. Haruki retracted the left hand that was pressing on Tsunade's shoulder. If it weren't for him in time, Tsunade would have punched it out. Rosa is ignorant and disturbed the distinguished guest, so I will pay you instead for him. Third cage apologized on his face, he waved his hand, his tone was serious. Rosa, don't go out to reflect. Luo left in silence. Third cage looked at the peaceful Haruki and frowned slightly, believing that Tsunade would not attack him. Luo is his apprentice, and he naturally understands his nature. When Haruki said this, he had already guessed that Luo was going to make a move. In fact, it was his acquiescence. Otherwise, Rosa definitely has no chance to use chakra in front of him. This is the confidence is the strongest wind shadow. Haruki might know it, but the attack that was enough to kill him was so calm. Either he was frightened, or he was certain that Tsunade would stop it. The former is naturally impossible, and the latter means that no matter what the transaction, their Tsunade will be at a disadvantage. Strength determines diplomacy. Moreover, Third cage's sight shifted downward. He had been observing Haruki and others. In the moment, he clearly felt the extraordinariness of the three Haruki students. Namikaze Minato and Uchiha Makoto, who had the information beforehand, did not say, but it was this Sagiri Izumi who really surprised him. Last night, when Chiyo heard that she had cracked the poison she made carefully, she was suspicious, and now she has noticed the amazing change in her breath. Although less than a second, Third cage can basically determine her identity, mostly Tsunade. So he also completely gave up his plan to use force. Not to mention how much it will cost to capture Tsunade, one of Sanin, but Konoha village will surely start a war again after knowing it. Haruki may not have that much energy alone, but adding a Tsunade is almost 100% of the matter. Master Fengying. Haruki shrugged and said, your apprentice doesn't seem to be very friendly to us. If he is not careful, he might die here. Third cage's face froze. The previous words were sent back intact. But he knew it was a threat, but he couldn't do anything. As Fengying, he can't be as eager in enmity as a rebel or a lone ranger, he must consider the consequences. And such consequences, he cannot bear. The expressions of Chiyo and Ebizo also changed. Even though their cultivation is better than that of ordinary ninjas, the three people who can almost represent Tsunade's face suffered a verbal attack that could be called humiliation, and they were embarrassed physically and mentally. But I came with sincerity, in order to help you Tsunade get rid of poverty and become rich. As soon as Haruki's voice turned, he looked serious and started talking about business. The previous words were regarded as a tribute to Tsunade, but he could understand their suspicions and actions. It can only be said to be the difference in the realm of thought. Just like the assistance of flower growers in the previous life, many people always think that it has a different purpose and price. But it turns out that rabbits love peace, but eagles are different. Get out of poverty and get rich. Third cage stared at him in amazement, trying to see if the expression on his face was joking. Although he knows the barrenness of Tsunade, a ninja from Kimura ran over to him and said to him that getting rid of poverty and becoming rich was too magical. You may not lie, but Tsunade's poverty is caused by the land and the environment. Third cage shook his head and said, unless you are Hokage and are willing to cede the land to us, you cannot do this with one or two businesses alone. However, this is not the case. Deserts and oases contain unique resources, but you have never noticed. How can it be? Third cage didn't believe Haruki's statement at all. Although Tsunade didn't build a village for a long time, they have already lived in the Kingdom of Wind, and generations of generations have been very clear about the resources here. Sunshine, wind, water power, oil, coal, ore. Haruki casually said the knowledge he learned in high school geography. Third cage was not shocked, but stunned. What are you talking about? Can these make money? With his limited knowledge, he couldn't understand how what Haruki said helped Tsunade get rid of poverty and become rich. Fortunately, Haruki was prepared. He summoning out a scroll and handed it to Third Cage. This is a tender. Oh no, planning book. Third Cage opened the scroll with curiosity. However, it is even more daunting. Afforestation? Intensive irrigation? Wind power? High-speed railway? Raising sheep for mining? You allow me to slow down. Third Cage pressed his forehead and looked blank. Too many unfamiliar concepts made him unable to adapt, and it was more of a headache than when he developed magnet style. Master Fungiying? Chio was a little confused by his series of actions, and became very interested in scrolls. Look at it too. Third Cage threw the scroll to her. So there was another stunned person in the office. Can this work? Chio asked uncontrollably. Naturally, Haruki replied. He just explained the concept in the scroll, but didn't do it. Even so, it is difficult for them to digest. Ebizo couldn't help but leaned in front of Chio and looked at the contents of the scroll. Soon he scratched his head, cannot read. Third Cage took a deep breath, looked at Haruki, and asked, what do you say can really make Tsunade rich? I have no reason to lie, and it won't be good for me to lie to you. Haruki looked sincere. Third Cage carefully observed his expression. After a while, he asked, what should I do? Haruki smiled. Not surprising to this answer. Tsunade has no choice but to trust him. As long as there is a way, it will not be reduced to the point where Fungiying sells dust and sells ninjutsu. Master Fungiying. How to do it can't be said clearly in 1 or 2 sentences. There are so many things involved, so we need to be open and honest, and only with enough trust can we promote cooperation. What are your conditions? As long as it's not too much, I can satisfy you. Third Cage asked after a moment of silence. If it can really change the status quo of Tsunade, even if it is a trap, he wants to give it a try. Since we cooperate, there is no need for extraneous conditions. Haruki heard Third Cage's implication, but he refused. You don't need to do extra things for me. Third Cage hesitated. There are no incidental requirements, which makes him very uncomfortable, and it also gives him a sense of illusion. Is there really such a kind ninja in this world? Haruki didn't explain anymore. The future benefits are bound. Even if he doesn't say it, Tsunade will naturally help him. This is far better than what the conditions are now. I must remind you that what we are doing will inevitably attract the attention of the great names and nobles of the Kingdom of Wind, and they may intervene at that time. As Haruki said, he looked at Third Cage. In the original work, Tsunade was hit by the daimyo of the Kingdom of Wind and cut funding support, even giving the task to ninjas in other villages. From his eyes, it was a very strange thing. Tsunade has a powerful force to subvert the Kingdom of Wind, but is willing to be constrained. The only explanation is the ninja code, our conservative thinking. They thought it was a matter of course, so they did not resist. It's Tsunade. I won't allow anyone to intervene. Third Cage's tone was firm, and added, the premise is that what you are saying can really have so much energy. Haruki nodded slightly. It seems that Third Cage is not pedantic, but still has courage. Even if he just told him to trust him, Haruki didn't lie to him. Agriculture, animal husbandry, mining, fruit forestry. The interests involved are too deep, and it is strange that the nobles of the Kingdom of Wind are not jealous. My cooperation with you cannot be completed overnight. It must be implemented steadily. It is a 10-year or 20-year livelihood, Haruki reminded. I understand. Third Cage nodded. It will be difficult to achieve in a short time, but with a specific direction, hope is visible, and there is motivation. Let's talk about the mode of cooperation now. Haruki stretched out 2 fingers. First, we will be our full agent, and you will provide raw materials and support. Second, you will handle it yourself, and we will provide guidance. The second kind. Third Cage didn't want to say. Haruki and the others were outsiders after all, and he couldn't repay all his trust. Choose the second option. The initial investment is very large. Haruki shrugged. You Tsunade may not have enough money. We have our own way. Third Cage gritted his teeth, but he threatened the Kingdom of Wind to give money directly. I can provide you with money. Haruki raised his eyebrows, a little unexpected that Third Cage was so stiff, but he continued. You should know the bank model, but it is not usury. I call it an infrastructure investment bank. Tsunade can also join you. The purpose is to promote regional construction and economic integration, and strengthen cooperation between members, including interest-free loans. equity investment, guarantees, etc. Although some parts are not understandable, Third Kazekage heard about the interest-free loan, and he did not refuse. You are very interesting. If the conditions are right, we are willing to be one of them. I think you will definitely be interested. Haruki smiled. We went on to talk about how the second cooperation mode should be developed. As I said, this is a long-term cooperation, in order to avoid suspension due to substitutions. The first thing Tsunade will do is to establish a plan in a 5-year cycle. No matter who the wind and shadow is, you must abide by it. Third Kazekage looked at Haruki a little confused. He thought he was young, and it was not a problem to live for 10 or 20 years. How could it be 5 years? Too long time is prone to variables, and 5 years is better to control. Seeing his reaction, Haruki explained that he can't tell him that you will be assassinated in a few years, and you will not be able to get into the soil and become a puppet. It's what you said. Third Kazekage thought for a while and said. The first 5-year plan aims to initially establish infrastructure and industrial scale. Haruki gave a light cough and told about his plan. 2 hours later, he concluded, that's probably it. Third Kazekage looked at him in amazement. What is it? He always felt that his 3 views had been broken and reorganized several times in these short 2 hours. Suddenly, he had an illusion that Haruki knew everything. Not only him, Chiyo and Ebizo raised the same emotion when faced with an incomprehensible plan. They are old, and they are no longer needed in the new era. Hyuga Seion and Hyuga Sayori, who accompanied Hyuga's family, were shocked. They have good business talents, and they know much better than the people present how shocking and horrifying what Haruki said, and how to make money. Where do we start first? Third Kazekage asked, regaining his senses. To get rich, build roads first, Haruki said, of course. Traffic is the prerequisite for everything, especially in the desert. It's difficult, the desert climate is too bad. Third Kazekage sighed. Subway. Haruki pointed to the ground. According to my imagination, use the Earth-style ninja to hit the oasis in the country of ventilation, as well as the country of fire and Konoha village, and then lay railroad tracks and transport them by train. Yes, this world has trains. Save Haruki's many troubles. The original work mentions the steam train that burns coal in the snow state, and the bloggers say that there are electric trams. In addition, there are 2 special transportations, space-time ninjutsu and your Tsunade's sand control flight. Railways are used to transport bulk materials, and special transportation is naturally used for precious and emergency materials. Of course, it's not only these 3, such as desert sleighs. But is the cost too high? Third Kazekage pondered. Tsunade has almost no ninjas who are good at Earth style. They need to be hired outside, and there are very few ninjas who can do it with time and space ninjutsu and flying sand control. Tolls. Haruki smiled. Tolls are charged according to the value of the materials. The cost may not be recovered in a short period of time, but in the end it will never lose. Third Hokage nodded. This method is good, and it can be used all the time after the railway is repaired. You can set up a Ministry of Transportation, which is responsible for all kinds of transportation, especially trains. It can not only transport materials, but also be used as a daily travel tool. You can completely put your vision on a wider place, such as the civilians of the Kingdom of Wind and Noble. Haruki told them about the hard seats and sleeping berths of the train, and how to charge them, and suggested that they recruit civilians from the border as members of the Ministry of Transportation. The construction of infrastructure can often bring a lot of employment. The daily maintenance and operation of trains and railroad tracks can help poor civilians survive. Third Kazekage and others were dumbfounded. An idea kept repeating in their minds. How could this be possible? I will stay with you for a while, just ask me if you have any questions. Haruki pointedly said, the prerequisite for economic development is a stable environment. Only the United Tsunade and even the country of wind can achieve the desired results. What's the matter? You seem to be staring at me all the time. Haruki looked down. It was not a modern outfit, and it wouldn't run out without a zipper. Could it be that I have become handsome again? Tsunade little lowly was stunned, and gave him a blank look. I'm not handsome, but my face is getting thicker and thicker. Where is it? Haruki knelt down, grabbed her little hand, and placed it on her face. Tsunade looked in a trance. Haruki's performance in Fengying's office just now made her feel strange. One new word after another popped out of his mouth. Fortunately, she thought Haruki was very salty and didn't work hard enough. But after a whole morning, Tsunade would not have such thoughts again. What Haruki said is not something that can be mastered in a short period of time, and it will inevitably require a lot of hard study time. In other words, he still worked very hard during the time he couldn't see, and she had been misunderstanding before. Haruki blinked. Tsunade is in a daze. The next moment he licked her lips. What are you doing? Tsunade reacted with a faint blush on his face. This is Tsunagakure. You are not afraid of being seen by Anbu's people? What if I saw it? Haruki said nonchalantly. He was not afraid before, let alone now. He was sure that he could almost do whatever he wanted in Tsunagakure except for the tail beast. Rogue. Tsunade raised his finger and flicked his forehead, and said with a sneer, is the way I am now more exciting to you? How is it possible? I'm not this kind of person. Haruki quickly denied, I like you, not your appearance. Glib tongue. Tsunade pouted and squeezed his cheek. What kind of character do I still don't understand? Say you don't like the appearance, but you are the one who does it. Oh, man. I can't just say it. Haruki no longer hesitated, picked up Tsunade and walked towards the room. I will do it. You. What are you doing? Tsunade trembled in his heart. I prove to you that I don't like your appearance. Haruki closed the door with his foot, then put Tsunade down again. You can change it. Tsunade suddenly had the idea of just this in her heart. She thought what she was going to do, and after doing it for a long time, it was just to change her back to what she was. After a burst of smoke, the Oni-san version of Tsunade went live. Pain. Haruki covered his forehead with an inexplicable expression. Why hit me again? Who told you to lie to me? Tsunade pulled up a wooden chair and sat down. His two long legs were folded up, revealing white and beautiful calf muscles, but it was not obvious, only shallow marks. Let's talk about it. What's going on in Fengying's office? The look of scrutiny appeared on her face, just a whip and candle. Cough. Haruki retracted his gaze and said, what I said was learned in my hometown. Do you think I would believe it? Tsunade looked at him dissatisfied. Such a special content, if in the country of fire, it is impossible to have no reputation at all. I didn't lie to you. Haruki leaned forward. Why don't you touch my heart? I heard that people who lie have a different heartbeat. But Tsunade believed him a bit when he saw him like this, that it was too amazing. It was taught to me by a very knowledgeable teacher in my hometown. He has traveled to many countries, including some perished countries. Haruki showed a look of memories. I have studied with him for 9 years. It is a very unforgettable time. Strictly speaking, he did tell the truth. In his previous life, his schools included elementary and middle schools. He had been studying for 9 years before arriving at university. And what he said before Fengying was only the knowledge of high school geography. Tsunade glanced at his expression. As she understood it, she was not lying. She said with emotion, your teacher is really amazing. Haruki smiled. Strange person. Hey, that's correct. The teacher of his previous life was in the shinobi world. Aren't they all strange people? He knows astronomy from the top and the geography from the bottom, and 1,000 years of history comes casually. Where is your teacher now? Tsunade couldn't help asking. Can you let him come to Konoha? He is unfettered. He is home from all corners of the world, and he doesn't like being restrained by others. It's a pity. Tsunade sighed. If you come to Konoha, the teacher will definitely give him the status of a think tank. I can do it too, but well, I'll only give you a solution, and forget about the others. How do I feel that you have a big opinion of the teacher? Tsunade looked up at him. No, Haruki bent down slightly and sipped her forehead, because I only care about you. Tsunade's eyes widened suddenly, and he quickly lowered his head to hide the blush on his face. But Haruki had already seen her red ears. He gently covered her ears, and after a while, he felt that the palms of his hands became even hotter. Tsunade pushed him away and stood up immediately, not daring to look at him, turning his back to say, it's too hot. He said, fanning with both hands for a while, and covering his face for a while. Tsunagakure, it's really hot. Haruki didn't break through her, opened the window, and a faint wind blew in. Would you like to change into cool clothes? For example, swimsuits? Haruki seldom saw her look like a good-looking baby and quiet, and couldn't help but jokingly said. But after speaking, I remembered a terrible thing. Tsunagakure, swimsuit, Chio. Good guys. He quickly threw this picture out of his mind. When Tsunade heard this, he raised his head and glared at him. What are you talking about? Your figure is wearing a swimsuit. It must be a country full of love. Hey. Didn't someone just say that they don't care about appearance? After a while, Tsunade relieved his shyness, and started daily life with Haruki again. That's right. Haruki nodded naturally, I don't care about appearance, but I can't help it. People I like happen to have this appearance, and I definitely like it as well. Tsunade was silent immediately. Can this come back? Say, why are you so skilled? How many girls have you fooled? Haruki looked at her in shock. How can you defile someone's innocence out of thin air? I gave you everything for the first time, and now you turn your face and deny it? Tsunade suddenly had a black line on his face. Don't talk nonsense. When do I want you to be the first? Bah. What are you talking about? Realizing that something was wrong, she interrupted her words quickly. You're so cute. Haruki couldn't help laughing. Tsunade finally realized that she was deceived, and she stared at Haruki angrily. I was so angry that he stepped forward and resorted to pinching the waist Dafa. Haruki took a few breaths of air conditioning. Spare life. Dare you still? Don't dare. Be louder. Don't dare. Namikaze Minato and Uchiha Makoto passing by were greatly shocked. When the movement inside the door disappeared, Namikaze Minato looked at Uchiha Makoto, his eyes begging what to do. Makoto tilted his head and pointed at the door, meaning you are coming. Minato hesitated for a moment before reaching out and knocking on the door. Come in. Haruki's voice sounded, and it sounded the same as usual. Namikaze Minato sighed in secret and opened the door. Haruki sat at the table, but Tsunade disappeared. Minato's extremely high emotional intelligence tells him that it is best not to ask what happened at this time. Teacher, Makoto and I have followed up on Sanagakure's latest actions according to your instructions. Let's report now. Well, let's talk. Haruki nodded and said. He came over this time without bringing anyone else. So I handed over the task of finding out the news to Minato and Makoto. In fact, they are also extremely suitable. Namikaze Minato is the fastest man in the ninja world, first-class escape, and Uchiha Makoto's 3-tomo Sharingan, with extraordinary insight and hypnosis ability, is very good for inquiring about the news. In a sense, it is wasteful. After all, Flying Thunder God and Sharingan are used to do Anbu's work. After we left, 3rd Kazekage immediately held a Jonin meeting to discuss the plan proposed by the teacher, and all those who opposed it were taken. After the meeting, Chiyo led many puppet troops to the metropolis of the Kingdom of Wind. Oh? It's more courageous than I thought. Haruki touched his chin, not surprisingly. Poor is thinking about change. Humans, when they are desperate, their dignity can be resolutely given up. Instead of Konoha, Haruki proposed these plans. Sarutobi Hiruzen's first reaction was to suspect that he was plotting wrongdoing, not to be ecstatic. This is because Konoha is far from exhausted. Sarutobi Hiruzen has room to think more. The so-called icing on the cake is not as good as giving charcoal in the snow, which is probably the case. From the current situation, 3rd Kazekage has basically trusted us. Haruki waved his hand. You two don't need to perform tasks anymore. It's rare to come to Sanagakure and you can go around. Okay, teacher. After Minato and Makoto retired, Tsunade reappeared in the room. The shameful scene was seen by her younger generation just now. She really wanted to find a place to get in. She didn't dare to meet them, so she hid directly. Haruki smiled. Tsunade saw this smile and was not angry. Have you noticed them long ago? No, Haruki would definitely not admit it. How can I notice other people when I am with you? Tsunade suddenly died out. She shifted her eyes, hummed and said, I believe you once. Haruki was about to stand up. Tsunade immediately pressed his head. You have to do something bad again. I'll go back to the room first. Tsunade slid his hands down and rubbed his face vigorously. He couldn't help but smile when he saw the strange face squeezed out, and then disappeared. Haruki blinked. What is this? He guessed that Tsunade's face might have reached its limit, so he fled straight away. Haruki has nothing to do. After waiting for a while, I planned to find Tsunade to go shopping, but the knock on the door sounded again. He welcomed the second wave of guests today, 3rd Kazekage and Luo Shaw. When Haruki saw these two people, he basically guessed the purpose. For many of his plans, it is difficult to see the benefits in a short period of time, but alluvial gold alone is a huge profit at hand. Since 3rd Kazekage brought Rosa, he said he had agreed to Haruki's deal. Please sit down. Haruki stepped back, returned to his seat, and poured a cup of tea for the two of them. He glanced at Luo Shaw, who was silent and seemed to be uncomfortable. He ignored him, and asked with a chuckle, Master Fengying is here to do anything? It's about placer gold. I saw in your plan that you want to buy placer gold at a price 10% higher than the market price. I want to know why? What? Master Fengying is unwilling to sell. Haruki raised his eyebrows. Naturally not. Third Cage hesitated and said honestly, if it's someone else, I wouldn't ask more. But with your amazing insight, I believe you are definitely targeted, and the benefits may exceed my imagination. So you want to get a share of the pie? We can deepen our cooperation, Third Cage said with great skill. It's not impossible. Haruki thought about it carefully. The gold industry is extremely profitable, but the first thing to do is to build the concept of a brand, because the users he targets are nobles. His manpower is already extremely reluctant to eat the country of fire. It's not unreasonable for the Kingdom of Wind to hand it over to Third Cage. Can you elaborate? Third Cage asked eagerly. Gold jewelry. Jewelry? Third Cage was a little disappointed at once. He naturally knew jewelry, but the price was not far from that of placer gold. Yes. Your handling of placer gold or jewelry is too rough. Haruki couldn't help shaking his head. The necklaces and rings in the original work are not pretty. Take the first-generation necklace known as the Death Necklace, for example. It is a thread plus a jade. I don't understand. Third Cage asked suspiciously. Well, today I will tell you about the concept of luxury goods. Haruki smiled and said the reason for the real money. This. Third Cage's eyes widened. I will give you a simple example. If there is an exceptionally beautiful gold necklace designed with the concept of the metropolis of the Kingdom of Wind, and public opinion is added to the flames, saying that this necklace represents the identity of the nobleman and the unique aesthetics, do you think would you buy it? We'll buy it. Third Cage thought for a while and said. This is the power of the brand. The price of a brand with meaning and a story for the same quality is much higher than the market. Third Cage looked up and down Haruki. He once again felt that his IQ was crushed and this kind of show operation was really outrageous. So do you want to collaborate? Let's create a brand together and compile a thrilling origin for it. Of course. Third Cage agreed without hesitation, and then asked again, why make up stories? Increase the legend. Haruki explained, for example, we can promote the brand in the Kingdom of Wind. The origin of the brand is the token that the creator of the Kingdom of Wind gave to his beloved girl, but it is a pity that this girl died because of the war. He never saw him again. So he threw the necklace in the desert, and we dug it out a few hundred years later. As this. Okay? Third Cage was dumbfounded. No one can prove that it is true, but no one can prove that it is false, right? Haruki shrugged, true or false, only if people believe this poignant love story, someone will be willing to pay. Haruki welcomed the third guest, Hyuga Sasori. After probably briefing her on the situation, he looked at Third Cage. I plan to set up the headquarters of this gold jewelry shop in Konoha, and Tsunade, as a franchisee, can open a branch in the Kingdom of Wind. Your lord is responsible, what do you think? Third Cage's eyes shone slightly, but then he frowned. He produced the raw materials in the shop, and Haruki just moved his lips, but he wanted to allocate 30% of the profit to him, instinctively a little bit reluctant. Haruki glanced at him, imagining his forehead. Master Funging, do you know what is most important in this world? Third Cage thought for a while. IQ. Haruki twitched his lips and said, it's creativity. Without creativity, your placer gold can't sell for a high price. It's reasonable for me to collect 30% of your profit. Third Cage nodded silently. Thinking that Tsunade still needs his help, 30% of the profit is not too much. What's more, if it is only gold dust, if it is operated properly, it will almost surpass the efforts they have made in the past few years. He never thought about it. It should be said that no one at Tsunade has thought of this way of making money. At that time, Hyuga Sasori will stay here to meet you specifically for the placer gold. It is naturally impossible for Haruki to stay in Tsunade for a long time and bring Hyuga Iori. It is precisely for this time. In Konoha, he intends to split with the Hyuga family. As the base camp, he needs the absolute control of the master. When Tsunade becomes Hokage in the future, he will turn to Konoha, even a public enterprise in the country of fire. According to Haruki's plan, all the economic lifeline industries such as transportation, banking, food, and ninjutsu will be publicly operated. As for Tsunade and the Kingdom of Wind, he can't control it for the time being, so it's a good choice to leave it to Funging. Third Cage nodded and asked, what should our gold jewelry store be called? Think about the name again. Haruki was lost in thought. The brand of the previous life is actually quite straightforward. What blessing, gold. Golden and jade good match. He said, gold and jade are our products, and good match can reflect our story. Of course, this is the store name, and we can produce a series of products under the prefix of Jinyu good match, such as love in the city. For girls who are in love. Dafu Dishan, for wealthy businessmen. For the heart of the desert, for famous nobles and so on. Wonderful. Third Cage's blood surged, really wanting to do it right away. In addition to placer gold, there are many other minerals in the desert, and we can't miss it. But these don't make money with placer gold, right? Third Cage shook his head and said, we at Tsunade have limited manpower. Currently, the only ninja who can directly find gold dust is Luosha. Not making money? Haruki couldn't help laughing. Master Fengying doesn't really think we sell pure gold jewelry, right? Huh. Isn't it? Third Cage opened his eyes wide and looked at him doubtfully. Naturally not. Although gold is the main thing, adding some jade or gemstones can make it more beautiful. Haruki's eyes narrowed slightly, and he didn't have any psychological burden to sell it to the nobles. As for the value of adulteration, it's hard to say. Third Cage subconsciously resisted the desire to complain. He suddenly felt that giving Haruki 30% of the profit was really a better choice. The routine layer after layer, the water inside is too deep. He consciously couldn't hold it. The gold jewelry store can be on the agenda. Haruki thought of Chiyo. I heard that Chiyo has gone to the metropolis of the country of wind, just to spread the story we compiled so that everyone knows it. Does the daimyo believe it? He believes it doesn't matter whether he believes or not. Haruki smiled and said, you only need to create a real atmosphere. As a daimyo, there is a token of ancestors, and he must buy it for his prestige. And this is our best and most effective. Daimyo taking the lead, the nobles will inevitably follow up, not only for showing loyalty, but also for saving face. Third Cage's face trembled slightly. Good guys. Really can play. He couldn't help feeling once again Haruki's strategizing in a certain sense of darkness. All in all, Third Cage came with doubts and left with satisfaction. And Luo Sha feels desperate for her future career as a gold miner. Gone. My dignified fourth Cage, with a rare magnet style, is not for mining. At this moment, his face appeared to Haruki, just like a high-speed graphics card. Haruki and Hyuga Sayori talked about what she was going to do next. After the talk was over, it was almost dusk. With the yellow sand flying in the sky outside the window, there is quite a precursor to the arrival of a dust storm. After Hyuga Sayori left, Haruki welcomed his fourth guest. Today is really lively. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion when he looked at the middle-aged man rushing towards him. The middle-aged man is wearing a black robe, short red hair, and there are black gaps on both sides of his mouth. Puppet. He held the sword in his right hand like a robot joint, and his whole body buzzed up and down as he sprinted. He leapt lightly, shuriken like a dagger, whizzing through the air, wrapped in a faint chakra, trying to penetrate Haruki's heart. Haruki raised his index finger. It seemed that he was not lethal, but after touching the shuriken, the majestic and terrifying power gushed out. The world is up. With the sound of the sword breaking in his hand, the puppet retreated faster than when it came. Snapped. He hit the wall, and the metal body made a strange noise. At this moment, Haruki raised his head. Green robe and long black hair fluttered in the air. In the dull sound, dozens of thousands of books enveloped the sky above the sunny tree like a torrential rain. With his eyes, he can naturally see the green toxins in the 1,000 books. But Haruki still didn't move, waving his arms casually, and an invisible barrier unfolded. Thousands of flying needles suddenly seemed to be in a quagmire, and they got stuck in the air. With a flick of Haruki's finger, Senbon turned around, and chakra swelled around them, prompting the flying needle to become a missile. Dang dang. The sound is endless. The female puppet who was descending was immediately knocked into flight, and fell to the ground a moment later. At the joints of her limbs, Qianbin happened to cut off her contact with the puppet master at will. The puppet master in the dark, shocked flashes in his bright eyes, but he still tried his best to stay calm. In an instant he raised his little hand, and the male puppet on his back immediately jumped up, his arms creaked, and several spiral swords were deployed. Haruki looked at him, a little boy with long red hair and a beautiful face. He directly blasted a punch, and the puppet's blade hand couldn't bear the huge force, and it broke every inch. It's useless. Haruki stood in front of the little boy, looking at his numb face with a little fear, remembering who he was. Sasori of Red Sand. At this time, Sasori of the Red Sand looks only 5 or 6 years old, but he can vaguely see the future. Especially the expressionless expression. Haruki recalled his life. As the grandson of Chiyo and a genius puppet master, Sasori should have a very bright future. If you don't defect, maybe 5th Kazekage is not Gaara, but him. But the tragedy began in the Second Ninja War. His parents died in the hands of Konoha's White Fang, Hitaki Tsukumo. As a result, Sasori became extremely withdrawn. And loneliness made him have a special feeling for the puppet, and because of his super talent, he finally embarked on a path of no return. He made his only friend a puppet, and even himself became a puppet. Just as he was about to avenge his parents, another thing happened. Hitaki Tsukumo committed suicide. So Sasori transferred the hatred to 3rd Kazekage, thinking that his negligence and incompetence caused the death of his parents. He attacked 3rd Kazekage and turned him into a puppet, becoming his favorite. Later, at the physical invitation of Konan, he joined the Akatsuki organization, and finally fought with Chiyo and Haruno Sakura, and died in the water. How should I put it, he is a tragic figure created by war. Why are you here to kill me? Haruki squatted down and looked at the boy who had not spoken since a while ago. If I remember correctly, we have met for the first time, without grievances and grievances. You were Konoha's ninja, and you know Hitaki Tsukumo, his friend, and I want him to feel the pain of loss, too. Sasori said, with a crisp voice that was unique to childhood. It is as expected. Haruki was not surprised. The children of the ninja world are already precocious, and Sasori is a genius, no worse than Kakashi. At the age of 5 or 6, he controls the 2 puppets of the father and the mother, and then cooperates with the poison brought from Chiyo. Accidentally, Jonin might suffer too. Not to mention his useless medical ninja. Speaking of this, Sasori is also a little speechless. How outrageous Anbu's news is. It simply broke his 2 puppets. He actually said that he is a ninja with superb medical treatment but not good at physique, illusion and ninjutsu. I really believe in your evil. Haruki thought about what to do with this guy. It doesn't make much sense to kill it directly, but it will lead to the breakdown of the cooperation with Tsunade. After all, he is the grandson of Chiyo. It's no use killing me. Haruki shook his head and said, if you really want revenge, you should go to Hitaki Tsukumo. Sasori glanced at him and said nothing. He naturally wanted to kill Hitaki Tsukumo, but it was impossible now, so after reading Haruki's information, he planned to kill him to vent his anger. But I didn't expect to be unfavorable. I can only say that I was too young to think about it clearly. Are you a puppet master? Haruki pointed to the 2 lying puppets. Did you make it yourself? Although he didn't understand why Haruki was chatting with him and didn't kill him, he didn't even want to die, so he chatted with him. Speaking of which, Haruki was the first person to chat with him since his parents died. It's too weird. Chat with a hostile ninja. Technology is good. Haruki said with a smile, I've seen many of you Tsunade puppet masters, but at your age, it's the first person to have such a level. Sasori is a little strange. Is this boasting yourself? What is going on with the guy in front of you? But it's not perfect. Haruki shook his head. Have you heard of human puppets? Have heard. Sasori's heart was shocked slightly. Since learning about puppets from Chiyo, he has also come into contact with human puppets. Making people a puppet is a violation of Tsunade's rules, which is as bloody as a human experiment. Although he didn't care, he always felt a sense of contradiction when he said it from Chingshu. Are you not the praised medical ninja? But human puppets are also puppets. Have you ever thought that making puppets into humans might be even more shocking and beautiful? Is this possible? Sasori had never thought of such a thing, for a while, very uncertain. When a puppet awakens human consciousness, it becomes another human being, eternal and charming. Isn't this art? Haruki flicked the future Sasori of the red sand. No, it's not actually a flicker. He was talking about a robot or Gundam from a previous life. In a sense, what Sasori pursues can be realized by robots. Will not disappear, will not decay, will not rot, and even have intelligence. Eternal art. There was light in Sasori's small eyes, and his expression was no longer numb. It's funny, isn't it? Haruki patted his little head and said, I won't kill you, so I hope I can surprise me next time I meet. Also give you a little suggestion. Do you want revenge? Think. Based on my understanding of Hitaki Tsukumo's strength, it is difficult for you to rely on human puppets to kill him. It takes a long time, and you have to be lucky to find several very powerful ninja puppets. But if you want to break into Konoha, still not enough for you to retreat. Haruki pointed out the window, unless it's the tail beast. Sasori looked at him subconsciously. Yes, tail beast. The powerful tail beast is enough to cause him to cause chaos in Konoha, and the possibility of him taking the opportunity to kill Hitaki Tsukumo increases greatly. Human puppet can use the ninjutsu and blood inheritance of his life. What if he is Jinchuriki? Haruki led the way and said, "Can you also control the tail beast?" At this time, Gaara was born too early. Sanagakure's Shozuru Jinchuriki should be part of the blessing. Sasori took a deep breath, feeling a little surging. He finally saw the hope of killing Hitaki Sakumo. Haruki smiled. Although things may not be as good as Sasori thought, he is indeed happy now. Sorry. Haruki glanced at Sasori. His ending in the original book was not so good. But maybe it falls into his plan, but there is another way. At this moment, he finally had a feeling of being behind the scenes. His plan came after seeing Sasori. Because of his intervention, it is a question whether the Nine Tails chaos can happen again. But he needs a valid reason to deal with Sarutobi Hiruzen and Shimura Danzo. And Sasori is his spare. How to say? It can be considered prepared. Besides, there are still many problems to be solved. For example, Sho Crane attacked Konoha. Why should Nine Tails not let it take action? And how to protect Konoha's civilians? He didn't want to see a devastated Konoha. But Haruki didn't feel worried. Because his own strength is strong enough. If things go as he wants, it is naturally the best, if not, it is ruined. Thanks. Sasori doesn't know what will happen in his future, but the gratitude at this moment is from the heart. He has found his own way. He put away the two puppets and left the room. Haruki's busy day finally came to an end. The excitement returns to silence. As night fell, darkness shrouded. A new dawn is waiting for dawn.